So hello everyone, welcome to this very special episode of the Unversed Cast, and you might be wondering what exactly is so special about this. Well, this is going to be the first episode to be broadcasted to Pornhub. Now, I know what you might be wondering. What do you mean? Well,
what do you
today
mean?
you get to listen to one man get royally by four other guys in this here episode. So, would anyone like to introduce themselves? Who's going to be me today?
I did not consent to this.
My name is Big King.
I'm Exoparapingus Game Boy.
I'm JebTube. I didn't sign up for this. I'm a good boy.
And y'all know me. Y'all know what I'm about. Y'all know my story. So, should we just get right in?
Pornhub. I've never been on this website before, so.
Liar.
Wait, I thought you had to be verified to upload. Is that a thing now?
In all seriousness, folks,
I don't
today we're talking about Sonic Frontiers. I know that pretty much everybody in this call was like, after Forces, they were like, I'm done with Sonic, I don't care. But I pulled rank and said, no, we're doing a podcast on Sonic Frontiers, whether you like it or not. And everybody was like, but I don't want to play Sonic Frontiers. But I made them do it anyway. So that's why we're here, everybody. We're going to talk about this game at length. But before we do, I think...
Should we pass the proverbial bong to, like, give someone just, like, a moment to give their general, very brief thoughts? Like, oh, hey, this game is poop. Oh, hey, I think this game is also poop.
Well, there will be time for that in a moment. But I do think before we talk about the game, we should talk about where we each are on Sonic.
Oh.
And the pre-release. I really want to talk about the pre-release for this game. Because...
Really?
Yes, I do.
I know a thing or two about that. That sounds good. Yeah.
So I guess let's start there. Mr. J, what are your general impressions on the Sonic franchise leading up to Frontiers?
Well, thanks for that intro, Mike.
That's right, Jay.
Well, I mean, when Forces came out, I remember... I thought it sucked, obviously. You can go watch my video on it, plug for the sake of my channel. But I mean, it's just... I can't say I really even had that much expectation for what the next one was going to be. I mean, Team Sonic Racing was another dud. Sonic Colors Ultimate was another dud. Sonic Origins was a semi-dud. So, when it comes to what's Sonic Team going to produce, I was just like... I guess I just hope it's a good game. That's all I really want to see. If it's been 5 years, let's hope the game is something good. Didn't look very good before it came out. And, well, now it's here and I wasn't fond of it. Although it was okay, I guess. I think. Not sure.
Okay. What about you, Jeb? Of JebTube?
Obviously, cha-ching, go check out my channel. I've not really been fond of what Sonic's been doing for like the last, now it's now a decade because it's 10 years. It's been 11 years since Generations, so that time is past.
It's been generations since Generations.
Holy shit, you're right. So meta.
This is so distressing that my cat started meowing in the distance. I don't think they realize it's been that long.
Past 5 years, past like since Forces. I mean, obviously, I thought Forces was diabolical. I think that's my personal Sly 4. That game did things to me.
That is not a compliment. Hot darn.
And I don't know. Ever since then, like, we got Team Sonic Racing, which I thought was really budget and lame and a poor follow-up to All-Stars Racing.
Can I like add in there? I've actually never played Team Sonic Racing. For those in the back, I just know it's a dud. Like, who needs to play it first?
JebTube played it, and JebTube, I tried. I customized my car, and then I did not play Colors Ultimate and Origins because I thought that those look like they have no reason to be played. But I played this Frontiers after the pre-release, and I thought that the second we saw gameplay, it was all downhill from... Actually, no. I thought it was all downhill from the fact that we couldn't see gameplay in 2021, but that's besides the point. Basically, I've not really been super fond of anything Sonic except maybe the movies. So yeah.
Okay. Ryan?
Okay. Well, I mean, like, the span between something like Lost World and Forces was 4 years. And in that span, we got, like, the Sonic Boom shit. And when Forces came out, I initially was a lot more positive on it. And I still find some value in that game. Like, I still think there's fun in there. But, like, it's a game that, like, gets worse the more you think about it. And I thought, again, like, I thought the game, like, ultimately, I think the game was fine, but I thought to my, like, I don't want to wait another 4 or 5 years for a game that's fine. I want to, if I'm waiting this long, I want there to be a standout game. And honestly, like, I find myself a little conflicted with Frontiers because, like, I mean, when they showed off the game, it looked exactly how I thought it would, except for maybe, like, the floating grind rails. I still think that's weird. But, like, I wasn't really surprised when they showed anything. It looked as good and as bad as I thought it was going to, if that means anything, So I wasn't really surprised by what they were showing, except for maybe some of the combat stuff. Some of that looked pretty cool, but I wanted to go in liking it because I felt like as if they were doing a lot of things that I had been asking them to do. Like, for the longest time, I've asked for, like, a Sonic game with light RPG mechanics, or like an action RPG Sonic game. This game kind of fills that. But also, I wanted Sega and Sonic Team to kind of take this game seriously, Like, if we look back with Sonic Forces, it's like, there's a lot of similarities between the pre-release and Forces and Frontiers. But, like, with Sonic Frontiers, this was shown off at, like, the Game Awards and the Summer Games Fest. And I think that says a lot more than showing off displaying your game at a Japanese Hooters, So,
oh God, I remember that.
So I felt like as if, like, they had a bit more faith in what they were making. They felt a bit more confident in this than they did with Forces. And also, again, with Forces, there was a lot of people like, oh, it's just like Sonic Colors, guys. You guys remember that? There wasn't really anything like that with Frontiers. So I went into this game with an open mind, and I came out enjoying it. I thought it was quite good. It's not peak fiction, but it's also not poo-poo garbage. I liked it. It was like 20 hours, and I thought it was fun.
Righty.
Yeah.
King?
Hi. So, when Forces came out, I actually remember I didn't hate it. I think we recorded a podcast pretty quick, and we were all kind of like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Every single time I have played it, my opinion has dropped. And I've played it quite a few times since then. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I despise it. I guess I'm just adding it to the pile of disappointments that we've been met with since I played Generations at this point, unfortunately. So going into this game, I was also not very interested in it. I'm pretty particular about the open world games I like anyway, so yeah, that did not help. I don't know. I wasn't really looking forward to it in pre-release. I thought that every trailer that dropped did not really... I just kept looking at it and I was like, this kind of just... I don't know, like... I can't know until I've played it, but like... I was looking at them run around on like platforms and rails and I'm like, what is the like... essence of this game? And I just could never figure it out. And I guess it was like apathy, the essence of apathy, which is how I ended the game. So it's okay.
Yeah. And I want to say that both you, I know you said this, King, and Ryan told me something similar, that you just don't care about Sonic anymore, or at least that was the attitude before Frontiers dropped about a week ago.
Definitely. And I don't care about it now. So nothing really changed. It just kind of affirmed that belief that I'm just exhausted by it all. And I don't know, man. Like, I'm probably still going to go back and play the games that I still admire. If I can get my hands on a fucking Xbox without blowing my wallet out, then maybe I'll play Unleashed again for the first time in fucking forever. But I don't know, in terms of like new Sonic stuff, like I'm not saying that I'm swearing off the series. I'm just not really like counting the days for the next release, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You're not really invested.
Which,
Yeah.
by the way, that was all I was saying in my Farewell Sonic phenomenon. So, and I'm basically the same now after this game, to be honest. I guess, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I was just gonna say before that, like, part of the reason why I could never be hyped for Frontiers, besides the part where the gameplay trailer came out and looked pretty fucking lame, is because of the fact that all this precedent that is built up. Like, when they show a trailer, oh my goodness, Sonic is like, it's a CG, he's in a forest, he does like a kick on a guy, or like all these CG trailers that they've been showing.
Yeah.
Hard for me to get excited about that, because my first thought genuinely was, well, I hope it's actually in the game this time, unlike Generations and Forces.
I was a fool because like I was like, hey, well, you know, they're talking in the CG cutscene, so yeah, they'll definitely be in the game. Nope.
No.
How silly I was! How silly I was for giving them the credit.
And every time I looked at the CG, I just thought, aren't the games... Don't you think that the graphics would be to the point where they'd look closer to this by now? To where we wouldn't even need CG? Yeah, I don't know. I was not impressed with... Which, honestly, it's kind of funny, because I feel like I was similar with Forces, where when I first played it, I was like, oh, you know, it's okay. But then, like, a few days later, I'm like, wait, no, I think this is Garbo. And
so
then,
the Sly 4 effect.
yeah, and I feel like that experience has made it to where every trailer, every preview thing for Frontiers, I'm like, nope, I don't care about good enough. I don't care. Where's the cool shit? You know? Yeah.
This reminds me of a film that came out when I was maybe 12 or 13 called Bridge to Terabithia.
Oh my god.
Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
that's a throwback.
Holy shit.
Bridge to Terabithia is a film about a boy whose life is thrown into chaos when his best friend inadvertently commits suicide.
Wasn't that
And
the
they
ending?
inexplicably marketed this film as a fantasy adventure film. So you're watching these commercials and it's like, yeah, Terabithia, it's so exciting and fun. And Anna Sophia Robb is charming. And then you go watch the movie and it's like, your best friend drowned in a river. Draw me some damn money. The T-1000 from T2 asks Josh Hutcherson to draw him some damn money. That's in the film.
I feel like I've seen this movie. I feel like this is the most... Like, I don't know what planet I'm from. It's like, all I remember is there was like a hill and like some water on it. There was a rope, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I remember the movie because it fucked me up. I was like, what did I just watch?
See, it's fun. Y'all are talking about the movie. I read the book, and then I saw the trailer for the movie, and I was like, what the hell is this? Because the book is so much different.
I read the book
Yeah.
too, but I honestly don't remember diddly shit. All I remember is that exact scene that Jay was talking about, and I think they showed that to me in English class, and it may have slightly
Me too.
traumatized
Fourth
me.
grade.
Yeah.
Oh
You know,
my god.
there was a bully who wouldn't let people go in the bathroom. That too. That happened.
Yes. Who had a father who beat her or something like that.
Oh,
It's been a while since I've seen the film, ladies and gentlemen. But I bring it up because that's an
I was gonna
example.
say, Sonic
that-
Frontiers. Let's go.
It's an example of marketing ruining an otherwise fine film. Like, viewed on its own, I'm sure if I hated it at the time because it was just like, this isn't what I was promised. But I imagine if I went back and watched it now as an adult, I would appreciate it a lot more because it had kind of the balls to work with such dark subject matter in a children's film, similar to the book, which I've never read, so who knows? But that's kind of like a scenario where Forces promised a lot in pre-release, where it's like, we're gonna have chaos in the game, and then chaos doesn't do anything. Or where you're gonna have, look at how amazing the CGI trailer looks. Then you play the game and everything's like speech bubbles. It's a case where, and I think it was also a victim of, because like Lost World came out. I still like Lost World, but I know a lot of people didn't for various reasons, and people are like, okay, the next Sonic Team game's gonna be good. Then Rise of Lyric comes out, and Shattered Crystal, which is by Sanzaru, and those went over very poorly. I defended Rise of Lyric at the time, but I kind of have realized in retrospect that
there is nothing good about that game at all. Not to put words in your mouth, but still.
That's not necessarily true, but it's a game that I have thought about not at all since I reviewed it. It has absolutely no legacy besides the fact that it was shitty.
I think
when it came
Sega's
out.
done a pretty good job making everybody forget that Boom was even a thing at all. It's kind of amazing. I have to give him credit for that.
Yeah.
But I do think you were right, Jay, that it was just like, after all the goodwill that they had built up with Colors and Generations, like, then they released something that was as unfinished as Sonic 06 that sends a pretty bad message about what Sega's priorities are.
Yeah.
And then people are like, the next Sonic Team game is going to be great. And then they made that Runners game, which I played for 5 minutes and never thought of again.
Mm-hmm.
And then Forces comes out, and it had like a really interesting premise and a lot of things that could have been fantastic, but then you play the game and it's just okay. And I think people, after all that time, I think that's what King was saying, or Ryan, I forgot who, that like when you're waiting like 4 or 5 years, you don't want something that's just okay.
Yeah.
It makes it hard to get excited for the next thing.
Yeah.
I personally, Jay, you described the game as aggressively mediocre in your review. I would call Rise of Lyric aggressively mediocre. Forces, to me, is just mediocre. And I do think that King is right that the more you play it, the more you realize the worse it kind of gets. To me, that has a floor. It's not a ceiling, it's a floor. How low that can go, because it's like, okay, the platforming sections are okay. This classic Sonic levels are okay. But it's like, it's amazing how they, like, those straightforward running sections in Unleashed where you dodge, like, the lasers and the pillars and stuff. I'm thinking of, like, Rooftop Run Day. Mm-hmm. You go from that to Luminous Forest, and it's clear that they just don't understand what made those sections fun before.
Yeah.
The game could have been so much better.
All, like, the challenge of it was just sucked out. Like, you know, if you want the 2D platforming element, like, Colors is better. And if you want, like, the 3D reaction time stuff, then Unleashed and Generations are better. If you want the exploration, Generations is better. That's the main problem. It's like doing nothing that the Boost games ever did well. Like, none of the things that those games did well are done well in Forces.
Yeah, that is a good point.
You know, it's ultimately just kind of like a very nothing game, which I guess is like the consensus is that like a nothing game really isn't what anybody was looking for. But hey, it could have been worse, most certainly.
Yeah.
But the big reason I wanted to talk about the pre-release for this game is I think Sega might have the worst marketing team in the universe. Like, wasn't Forces originally revealed in some kind of live stream that had like 1 million technical problems?
Yes.
And then for this thing, we had like that terrible IGN clip where people were debating online about whether it was an old build or whether the IGN guy was even playing it, or they were just candid footage.
Oh, it was hilarious.
Just for the record, like the guy on IGN who was like covering the game and everything, he said multiple times that like this was just footage that was sent to him.
Yes.
This was not him playing the game.
Yeah, they just
But
played it on IGN.
like it was footage of some random asshole playing the game for the first time.
And then that's
and
the
not
thing.
one of the devs.
And then for one, there's also just the army of Sonic fans willing to just jump down the IGN people's throats, being like, oh, but the Unleashed review from like 14 years ago, still mad about that, like 14 years later, like, guys, get a life. But I mean, more importantly, like the IGN footage reveal was so bad that I'm pretty sure I was laughing while watching it. I was on like Jeb's stream, and then I was like going door to door showing everybody, and I was like, yo, TGX, you gotta watch this. It's hilarious. It's a riot. And I'm just like, yo, look at that rail just popped in out of nowhere.
And also, before this, they revealed the game, the Forces-esque equivalent was the Misty CG trailer in May 2021, where Sonic runs in a forest and then spins around in a circle, and then there's the zap symbol that I still don't know the fucking definition of. And then, yeah, that's it. It literally told us even less about the game than Forces.
Yeah. And I think for me, the moment I found out it was an open world game, I kind of checked out. Those aren't really my jam in the first place, and y'all know that. Like, I loved Halo Infinite. I think it's great. I actually replayed it this year and 100%ed it, and I still liked it. Besides the bosses on Legendary.
The legendary bosses. I still think about those sometimes.
You remember that part at the end of the Harbinger boss fight where you have to kill like 3 elites, 6 skimmers, and a brute chieftain before you can hit the Harbinger the last time? I was stuck on that for like an hour.
I want to go play Legendary in the original fucking games again, because those boss fights are like painful.
Yeah. But I liked that game, and I played a little bit of Ghosts of Tsushima because I needed something for my PS5, and I liked what I played of that. So I was kind of like, okay, I'll give Frontiers a chance, but I wasn't like actively watching trailers or anything, because the whole discourse around the game, because I know, Jeb, you recently released a video called Sonic Fan Tears Review, where you're talking about the fans' tears. There's like, there's like
Jeb, you should do one on Zelda called Tears of the Fandom.
Ooh.
That would be funny. But essentially, Jeb, what you were saying is there's a subsection of the fan base that is very defensive and protective of the Sonic brand. It's like, they're not even like Sonic, they're not fans of Sonic, they're like fans of being fans of Sonic. And it's like, they are very defensive against the slightest criticism. Like, you could probably explain this better since you made the video.
Well, I don't mean to boast, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really wanted to hone in on that toxic positivity in the video.
Yeah.
And show that at some point it feels like this attitude is blatantly encouraged, which is why I wanted to talk about it, as opposed to toxic negativity, because there's just always people, like when I was a kid, right?
Yeah,
I got made fun of for liking Sonic. I mean, sometimes I probably deserved it, to be fair, but sometimes I really didn't, and people were they're assholes, and they're saying you like stupid Sonic, like what about 06, all that stuff, and that's bad. But in the Sonic community, and it's not just on Twitter, it's like it's in Discord servers, it's on Reddit, it's in the YouTube comment section. It's just, you're just public enemy number one if you don't like the new Sonic thing. And you can say it as nice as you want, but there just are people who feel very attacked. And that's what I want. I'm feeling
very attacked right now.
Everyone here was thinking it.
It's just, I don't know. And so with Frontiers, since we've had these long ass waits between, well, both for Forces and for Frontiers, everyone's just getting super duper antsy. And it just is unfortunate that I happen to be on the negative end of that. And so, people feel really attacked when, you watch these trailers and stuff's popping in, and it's like, what can you really do except say they'll fix it, or, something like that.
I want to say there was another clip of gameplay they released after the IGN one where they got someone who was actually good at the game to play it, and it made the game look much more fun. And then it was just kind of like, where was this last week? And then it turns out that they actually did use an older build for the IGN one or something like that. I can't remember exactly, because it felt like this happened 15 times during the pre-release. But it's like, we are now at the point where fans can make excuses like, it's an older build, you don't know what it is. And they were actually right.
Yeah.
And that's what other publisher besides Sega does this kind of thing.
Well, in early trailers for games, like there's like Puddlegate with Spider-Man,
Yeah.
and that'll happen, but it's usually, at least not if we're waiting like 4 to 5 years, it's usually not the case where they come by year of release and are like, hey, here's an early build where shit blatantly where Sonic's standing in midair after punching, which that thankfully is not here anymore, I guess.
Well, that's one of the biggest problems, is that they didn't just show an early build. The first thing they show of this game is like Sonic awkwardly walking around the environment. And I guess that's supposed to be peak hype, but like, it just looks really lame. Especially when the animation is just not there to make any of this look interesting.
Yeah, like, if Breath of the Wild were announced, and they did that, it looks good because, it looks immersive and stuff. And there's just no immersion seeing Force's Sonic walk, and not even really walk at the same pace that he's moving, on a tower or something. And that's...
Yeah.
It's like they tried to go for something with that initial reveal, and it just failed. And then,
And that kind of killed for me any of the momentum or any hype I might have had. Because, like, leading up to the release, I didn't watch any of the trailers. I saw clips of Sonic putting his hand on, like, one of the portals, I think. Mm-hmm. And then I think Sage was, like, looming evilly over the Cocos or something. And I didn't bother to watch those trailers. I scrolled past them on Twitter multiple times, which is why I even know what they look like. But it's just like...
I'd say that trailer specifically, I'd say that the marketing sometimes feels... It feels very misleading in some ways, because I watched that trailer and there's like, we were talking about like the CG stuff. There's like CG cutscenes in this trailer, and it for a moment made me believe that this was going to be in the game and this was how the story was being told.
Yeah.
But there was not a single drop of CG in the game, which is like really annoying.
Something I was also thinking about too was that there's this like one CG scene where Sonic like runs over to like punch Sage, and that shit just doesn't even happen in the game at all.
Yeah, that's funny because like he runs up to punch Sage, but like in the game it's just like, oh my god, hey little girl, are you okay? Do you want a lollipop?
There's like one part where there's like where a Coco is just walking around in the CG and then gets attacked by a ancient thing.
It was Ninja, yeah. And I'm like, is Sage commanding it to do that in the CG? Because that seems kind of, I don't know what's going on here. It's kind of like, it feels like a concept trailer, which it is, but very odd. I don't know.
Yeah. And that, I think, is another good example of the Bridge to Terabithia effect. Where it's like,
yeah.
Like, you're watching this trailer that shows, like, oh, they're going to be CG cutscenes, and Sage is going to take a more actively villainous role than she ends up taking in the game. Mm-hmm. Then you play the game, and she tries to kill Sonic multiple times, and he's just like, hey, I want to help you if I can. It's just like, kind of naive. It's very different. And it's one of those things where I did not watch most of the trailers leading up to Forces, and I'm wondering if that's part of why I did not hate it nearly as much as most people did.
Well, I think back to Forces had this E3 trailer. That's where they revealed the villains and shit. And I still look back at that and think that's a pretty great trailer. Like, I really actually did make the game's story look like it was going to be something really special. And this game has a story trailer. Like, Forces had a story trailer too, but that was not very good. This game has a story trailer, but the story trailer doesn't really tell me about the story. It just is a bunch of Sonic fights things and sees that Amy is trapped, I think, and then the marketing, I cannot stress enough that marketing was such a big deal. It's literally the reason why Sonic got onto the map at all.
Yes.
And so that, I don't know, the fact that it's like really passive and just kind of like, Yeah,
there's a new game coming out or something. Here's a crappy trailer. It's kind of what it was like.
Yeah.
So I want to say, King, you said after your 06 review that you were just not interested in playing Frontiers at all.
Yeah, I was there.
And I was kind of in the same boat. And in fact, if it hadn't been for this podcast that we're doing right now, I probably wouldn't have played it.
Well, yeah, honestly, like this podcast is sort of the reason I did. I did end up getting a review code, and that probably would have changed things. But I was thinking, right, if they're not going to send, at the time, I thought that I was like blacklisted from Sega. Apparently I'm not. So that's cool to know. But like if I wasn't going to get a review code, I didn't really feel like purchasing it. And I had other games to play, like fucking God of War was coming out.
Yeah.
Pokemon comes out really soon. There's a bunch of games I need to catch up on that I didn't play throughout the year. Like I still haven't even played Elden Ring. And I'm kind of at the point now where I'm in a better mental headspace to handle that game. So I was like, maybe I could play Elden Ring or something. I just didn't really care.
Yeah.
And I guess it is ironic me saying that. It's like, oh, I just made like a 40-some minute video and now I'm doing a podcast about it. So like, I guess I did end up having something to say about it. But if this podcast never happened, I might not have really even played it. Because what I was going to do was wait to hear from people I trusted about how they felt. And all the people I trust either liked it okay enough or didn't like it at all, which I just wouldn't have bought it at that point.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So.
The burning question, EXO. How do you like it?
Well, I, for one, loved this game. I think there is a very real possibility it may end up being my game of the year, depending on how I feel about God of War Ragnarok.
What
For
the
real?
fuck?
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
Context, everybody. We've the rest of us have not heard EXO's opinion on. He's kept it very mysterious for this podcast. So this is a truly entertaining moment right now.
Wow, so I guess I'm not getting royally fucked by four guys.
Yeah, I was about to say, you said that earlier. I'm like, we don't know what EXO's side is.
I thought you were talking about me.
No! I was talking about me!
To be fair, I wouldn't have a problem being royally fucked by four guys, but we'll move on. So I've prepared
Step
a
Bro!
list of games that I enjoyed Frontiers more than.
Oh no, this is gonna cause psychic damage.
You have like a physical list with paper and shit?
Sonic Unleashed, Sonic Forces, Sonic 2, Sonic Adventure,
I'm out!
Sonic
Bye.
Unleashed Wii,
Even Ryan's out.
3D Blast, Sonic Generations.
Fucking Sonic
And-
Frontiers better than 3D Blast. It's like saying fucking Coca-Cola's better than Diet Coke.
Well, for
now
me,
Ryan
3D
is
Blast
one of
is a
the four
B-tier
guys.
game. Sonic 3 Knuckles. And it's kind of a toss-up between that and CD. So it lands at the top of B tier.
It lands
Wow.
at the top of B tier. I'm gonna have to cross-reference your tier list that you posted the other day.
So, yes, I really enjoyed this game. And we can get into it.
Now listen,
As
listen.
Anakin said, this is where the fun begins.
That's
Listen, EXO, I'm more than happy to side with you on enjoying the game, but we might have to talk after class about what you said about my baby adventure, okay?
Please remember to leave all of your negative comments in the section below. It will boost our engagement.
sorry.
Your fury will make us stronger.
Did you say it was above Generations?
Yes.
I just sunk back into my chair a little bit.
I mean, his name is Exo Paradigm Gamer. What
That's
did
true.
you expect?
Holy shit. Wow. That's awesome.
Well, here's the thing. I've never really liked Generations that much. Like, even back when it was released, I'm just like, this isn't as good as Colors. And that's how I've always felt about it.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't like the camera. I don't like the level design that much. I think it's overdone. There's nothing of a story. I mean, it's good, it's just not my favorite thing in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people that's like top tier Sonic game, like S tier, or even their favorite Sonic game for the most part. And I see it. It's just not really my jam. Like Jay mentioned earlier, there's a division between like the 3D speed obstacle avoidance type boost Sonic and the platforming type boost Sonic. And I like the platforming type boost Sonic much more. And that's what this game was. So yeah. So let's get into it, folks. Let's talk about this Sonic Frontiers game. It's kind of hard to know where to start. I think we should talk about story last so we can put that in a spoiler section for folks who haven't played the game yet. So I guess we should probably start, I think, with Cyberspace, because I think that's where most of the problems are going to crop up.
That's what I'm most curious to hear your thoughts on, Mr. XO, because, like, okay. Cyberspace taught me a lot of things, and it taught me a lot of how Sonic level design works and like what the appeal is. And King even briefly touched upon it on his video, which if you haven't watched it, you should go check it out. But I think something else is context. You know, it's like, it's not just the environment that you're running around in, it's the why you're running around. It's like when you're running around in City Escape, you know, you're escaping Gun, and then when you're in Green Forest, you're trying to escape an exploding island, and Skyrail, you're chasing Tails, you know? And yeah, of course, like the environment, like the setting itself also helps, and the music helps as well. But I think also the context matters, and I think that's also what gives Sonic a lot of its identity when you compare it to something like Mario or Mega Man, Crash, Spyro, whatever. You know, there's a reason why every level exists. Cyberspace taught me that, like, if you take away all of the stuff that makes a Sonic level, like, you know, the context, the environments, you know, and all that fun stuff, and you're just left with, like, the bone of a Sonic stage, I mean, that's just kind of like what Cyberspace feels like. It just feels completely bare bones. Like, there's nothing there.
They feel
so
like
the level design
stages.
just doesn't feel special. Or it doesn't even feel that great. It's not that fun to go through. On top of it, you know, controlling like absolute ass.
Which we can get into.
You just stole like everything I was going to say. How dare you?
Well, you know, eat my butt.
I mean, I'm Pan and I even wouldn't do that.
This is starting to be quite the erotic
welcome
episode.
to the Unversed Cast, Jeb.
Oh shit!
When you're
right.
completely unfunny like me, that's all you got is sex jokes. But and I think that is a legitimate point to make, King and Ryan. Just to be clear, both Jay and King have made Frontiers reviews as of recording. I've not seen them yet because I wanted to have like a fresh interaction here in the podcast.
Logical.
Respectable.
Shocking. But we're...
I'm experiencing many conflicting feelings.
But it's interesting you mentioned context, because that was actually something I really liked about Forces compared to Generations. Because like Generations is just like random levels, and there's only like 18 of them. And their choice of levels to pick from were often not very good, like Planet Wisp as the final level. Come on, you had Asteroid Coaster. Whereas Forces, it's like there was a story reason behind every level in the game, and that increased my investment in the levels and the story at the same time. And it's something that they hadn't really done since like Black Knight, maybe, at the time of writing. So it's kind of interesting that in a sense they've gone backwards from Forces, because I know you guys all hate the story in Forces, but it at least gave some context for the levels happening.
Yeah, and that's something I appreciate about the stages in Forces.
Well, you know, I think Jay put it best that the Cyberspace stages make Forces levels look like Generations, and I would agree, because I think the Cyberspace levels feel like test stages, and you know, you can say that they're meant to be mini challenges and all, but I don't know. I would just prefer that they're really exciting too, in addition to the overworld.
Well, it's honestly shocking that they would like borrow old level design wholesale in like a gameplay system that is so much worse than every game they're stealing from. Like it doesn't make me feel that great when I'm playing a Metal Harbor clone and I'm like, wait a minute, is this Metal Harbor? And then I'm like, oh man, that level was cool. This one,
yeah, because you think about that those levels were crafted to be played in the systems that were playing them. So when you take those levels, they don't always translate very well. There might be some, I guess the best way to put it is there's unintended consequences. They don't all have to be negative per se, but in my experience, they were pretty damn negative comparisons.
I was going to say Generation Sky Sanctuary is like the biggest example for me. I think it's one of the biggest offenders where it's like a direct comparison is when you're like, oh my lord, this is so much worse than it used to be.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the question I have for you, XO, and I swear I'm not coming after you here, but I guess just how do the Cyberspace stages compare to something like Generations or any other Boost game?
Okay, so I want to remind y'all, first of all, you guys are all big fans of Unleashed. You guys all love that game. I want to say for all of you, it's like S tier or A tier for you guys.
B tier, sure. But and the reason why it is B tier is because I think it's got some very questionable design, but yeah.
And it's like, I think that is an example of a game that was unfairly maligned at the time of release because of 06's legacy, and a lot of the reviewers at the time being like classic Sonic kids who just never, abandoned that paradigm of what the series should be and kind of judged the game unfairly. But in more recent years, it seems like folks from your generation and my generation have come around and said like, no, this game is actually really good. Perhaps even a masterpiece. And then I go back and play it again because I didn't really like it the first time. And I'm like, yeah, these Werehog stages are pretty good. I really enjoy them. But having played Colors and Generations, these day stages play like garbage. And the physics are too fast. The camera is way too zoomed in. Everything just feels like it flies on screen out of nowhere. The frame rate sucks. And it's like, compared to that, I will take Cyberspace any day. And because I think Cyberspace has the opposite problem of Unleashed, where Unleashed is way too fast and you barely have time to react. Problem with Frontier's Cyberspace levels is that everything feels pretty slow. But the trade-off is that you get to have a lot more 3D-ish level design and platforming, which is not something that was in a lot of the previous games, because Unleashed had those prayer wheel things in Chun'an, which they kind of aped for Sky Sanctuary in Generations. And it's anytime those games, in Colors to an extent too, which I just replayed yesterday, anytime that they had a 3D section that's more free roaming where you have to run around an open environment, it played like garbage because there's too much wind resistance. It's not sensitive enough. And it just seems like Sonic isn't going where you're pointing him. When
you move 3D in Unleash, it's you feel like you're a tank. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's I don't know. It's real awful in 3D control for those games.
Yeah.
I'd argue at the very least you have, in Unleash it's different because the drift in Unleash is kind of weird, but especially in Generations, you had the drift and you had a more reliable sidestep. You had ways to alleviate some of the control issues, and you don't really have those things to fall back on in Frontiers. And you could see it even in professional, quote unquote, but you could see it in high skilled playthroughs of Cyberspace where it's just you got Sonic trying to make a turn, but he's hugging the rail and he's just kind of stuck there running in place for a second, and he has to correct himself. It feels weird.
There was one level that was built around drifting, and I think it's kind of telling that it was the only Cyberspace level built around drifting.
Yeah.
It played like garbage, and to get the S rank, I just jumped over the drift pads.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, same.
Something I didn't.
Yeah, that level sucked donkey dicks. And it's like, I say I love this game. That is not to say that I will dismiss every criticism of it or anything. I'm not one of those toxic positivity Sonic fans, after all. It's more to say I have different priorities from other fans to begin with. Like, I didn't even like Mania that much. I don't want giant overwrought level design with 16 pathways, which is why I liked the simplified design of most of these stages. I liked that they were mostly straightforward. There were multiple paths to speed you up for the S rank, which is great, but there wasn't so much on screen that I got sensory overload like I do with Generations or Mania.
Really?
And there's this one level, I want to say it's on the 5th island. It was maybe like 4-9 or something. It was like a chemical plant level where you're like climbing upwards. And the S rank for that level was really fun because you had to get like the timing for the homing attack and stuff just perfect. And there were like hidden springs where if you go off of a jump high enough, you can land on a secret platform and skip like a whole section of a level.
Yeah, you know what? That level, I actually didn't mind that level. I have to like rack my brain because like you can't, it's impossible to like identify what you're talking about until I like really think about it. But yeah, that level I remember being kind of fun to S rank as well. I don't think it's as hard as like 1-2 was the S rank because dear lord.
Oh god,
like,
yes.
I'll give credit where it's due. I do think that most of the cyberspace stages in the last island are actually pretty okay. Like
Yeah.
I remember like when I got to like
I think like
I got to like
would
the
agree
city
with that.
one, and I'm like, oh, like the one that's like really wide and everything.
Yeah.
It was one of the earlier ones they showed off too, which I thought was funny. But like that one actually wasn't too bad. And there was one where you're on a skateboard, and I know some people hate it, but I thought it was kind of cute. I'm like, oh, this is it's different. It's
It's better than White Acropolis.
yeah, and Vanilla 06, yeah.
Yeah. Which
wasn't-
I should note to folks in the audience, I have not played Project 06 yet. I'm waiting for it to be finished first.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I was really kind of surprised when I finished the game that they didn't take any colors levels, which I think
That's
would
a
have
good
just
point.
worked
Yeah.
a lot better.
Like
yeah.
it was mostly Sonic Adventure 2, Unleashed, and Generations.
Yeah,
Like those are
'cause
like
I
the
was-
three that they pulled from.
I was thinking, well, okay, well, you're going to be pulling levels directly from Adventure 2. So what you're going to do is just pull levels from across all the 3D, or I guess even 2D games as well, because we're putting fucking classic Sonic levels in here from Generations. But no, they didn't, which I found odd, because like that Colors is like Kishimoto game, and this is like a slower, more platforming-esque Sonic, which granted, I don't...
Is that your way of saying it's just like Sonic Colors?
I mean, in cyberspace, almost, but I mean, there are no wisps. There are no wisps. They probably could have even repurposed some Lost World levels for this, but they didn't.
Yeah.
They had the parkour.
Yeah.
Kinda.
So, like, I was pretty confused about that. And there's also just like the fact that there are original stages are really weird to me because, well, okay, this just feels like a random assortment of shit. We just have like Unleashed and Generations and SA2 specifically. And then we have that sometimes, you know.
But yeah, and some of those levels are like, yes, we pulled the Unleashed DLC level.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
I have a note to mention about that, by the way,
Oh boy.
because I would hope that all 4 of my good friends here in this podcast have seen my review at least once.
no, I remember.
Yes.
I remember your pain.
I S-ranked Unleashed, and that's part of why I'm so hard on it, because it really feels like none of the S ranks. It really reveals that the optional acts in the DLC levels were not play tested to me. Because it's like, you got a terrible camera, you're running laps around the same chunk of level design, one tiny little mistake throws everything out, and the S rank is really, 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 really demanding on top of that. And I want to say, I remember that specific level that was repurposed in Frontiers in a cyberspace level. I think it's like a Spagonia level or something. And I remember absolutely hating that level in Unleashed because the controls are so slippery and it's hard to turn around, which is kind of true for Frontiers as well. The camera sucks. The game just does not feel very responsive. I want to say there's like even like a 20 millisecond delay on your jump in Unleashed that can fuck you up.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was surprised at how much better the level played with Frontiers physics, honestly. Like, it went from a level I hated to one I actually enjoyed.
I know which level you're talking about, and I fucking hate that level. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'll also say that, like, I was, for the most part, okay playing the ones that were fully 3D. It was when it went in 2D that really grinded my gears, so to say.
I think the physics feel weird in 2D for me.
Yes.
So I think I would agree with that.
There was one in the first island that gave me a lot of shit trying to S rank. And like, I did 1-2 faster than this one. I think it was like maybe 1-4. It's like a 2D Green Hill. It's the one that's based off of Green Hill from Classic Sonic Generations.
Yes.
For some reason, that one fucked me up. It controls so wrong.
I think what it is Sonic feels really sluggish in 2D compared to previous games. It seems like I think one of the biggest problems with the cyberspace levels, control-wise, is that the boost doesn't feel like a boost anymore. It feels like a run button.
Yeah.
It essentially is.
Which is why when I first played it, I'm like, wow, this is like if you drop Lost World controls into Generations. Because that's kind of what it feels like, because the boost feels like a run button.
I kind of just wish they made the whole game more like Lost World at this rate, to be honest.
Yeah. I agree with that sentiment completely, as I think we can talk about this more when we talk about Open Zone. But it's like, Open Zone would not work if you just dropped Generations or Unleashed control in it. It just would not work. You need more precision to your movement. You need something more adventure-like, more Lost World-like. But then when you have the cyberspace levels on top of that, you're kind of faced with a dilemma where, well, do I put like more accurate Generations controls in these levels and make it like a completely different gameplay style almost with a proper boost? Or do I make it more consistent between the Open Zone and cyberspace so that players who are new don't have to go through the learning curve of learning how to play the game twice and then switch between those two schemas mid-game whenever they go to a cyberspace level? And it seems like they just chose the latter. They tried to keep it more consistent between things because there are 2D sections in the Open Zone too, which is a little weird. And I think they were kind of worried if we make them too different, then people might have trouble switching. So it's kind of like one of those things where if it were up to me, if I were Kishimoto, I would have said, let's make the cyberspace levels more 3D, more adventure-esque, more Lost World-esque. You won't have like the spinning tubes or whatever, but you know, we'll have something more like Tropical Resort. What was it called? Tropical Coast from Lost World, where it's more adventure-esque. And we could do something like that, and then that would give us opportunities to bring back, you know, and then the run button, a run button type boost wouldn't feel so out of place in that.
Well, like, you can't even ram into enemies anymore. It is.
That sucked.
Yeah.
And I will say this, I replayed Colors yesterday, and I almost 100%ed it too, in like about 10 hours, but I had to go to bed so I could get ready for this podcast. But I think what I noticed, something that I kind of hate about that game, is that you have the double jump, which I like. It's one of the reasons I love the game so much more than Unleashed. I think Unleashed would be a significantly better game if it had a double jump. But the problem is that the homing attack is mapped to the same button, and then Unleashed had the opposite problem where homing attack was mapped to boost, which I think worked a little better, honestly. This game has a dedicated attack button, and a dedicated boost button, and a dedicated jump button. So I never had any instances of I'm trying to double jump, but then Sonic rams into an enemy I don't care about. So I think that is something I would like to stay standard going forward. I liked that homing attack had its own button, It gives me
I'm
more
surprised
control.
it took them this long to try that again.
Yeah. I know that some people hated that in Unleashed, but in retrospect, it was probably a good idea to keep them separate.
Yeah.
You were saying, Ryan?
No, I was just going to say, like people complained about it Unleashed, so they probably just went back to it because people complained.
It's a good thing, honestly, that they did this, because they put the boost on R2, which is how it should have been in Unleashed. But then the only problem with it is that now Square or X or whatever the fuck is also punch. So there have been times in the open zone where I'm trying to homing attack, but then Sonic will punch, and that stops all his momentum, and then he falls. But yeah.
I guess this is a good time to ask which platforms you guys played the game on.
PC.
PS5.
My review code was for PS5. Technically, my first playthrough was on Switch, but then I played it on PS5.
I played PS4.
Okay, so I played it on PC, and I'm not sure if this is true for the console versions, but you can customize the button layout.
Yeah.
And what worked for me was, okay, jump on A, and I'm talking about like Xbox controller. Jump on A, attack on Y, so that homing attacks on Y, and then boost on X. Then I want to say I put Psyloop on R2, and then the Phantom Rush, or the kicking thing on L2, or left trigger. And that worked pretty well for me, where there was minimal heuristic interference from the older games, because like boost, jump, and all that stuff is on the similar buttons as before, and then I just had to get used to pressing Y to homing attack things.
Can you separate punch from homing attack? I totally forgot you could do this.
No, you can't. Yeah, that's the same button. But for me, it worked pretty well. I didn't really have a problem with that once I got the controls the way I liked them.
I think it's pretty weird how that's not even an option in the console version of the game.
Is it not an option?
I mean, like,
no, you can't rebind.
You can't rebind. Like, there are control options, but like, it's not like you can't rebind. There's nothing like that.
You can't rebind your keys.
Yeah.
There are. I don't remember what the options even are, but yeah, there's no rebindable keys.
Huh.
You know, that reminds me, Jay, of fucking Code Veronica.
Oh boy.
Where they like mixed up the buttons. They put run and map, or the inventory and the run button, they swapped them. Like the only one where you could attack with X also put the map where the run button used to be.
The biggest insult to injury is, like you're saying, there are these controller presets, but none of them are the PS1 controls. So that was really nice. Yeah, for all those videos, I just remapped all the buttons in the emulator settings. Not that I use those, of course. I'm only on...
console.
I mean, my consoles.
Indeed. I also wanted to mention, I think one of the biggest problems everybody has had with Forces was the luminous forest effect, where you're on like a corridor and the enemies don't do anything to you. There aren't lasers to dodge or pillars to dodge or anything like Unleashed, or even colors like terminal velocity lasers and stuff. And there was pretty much none of that in the Frontier Cyberspace levels. Everything was pretty focused on platforming, even in the 3D sections, and I thought it worked pretty well. Or like,
then
there was this one,
again, a lot of that is also because these were reused from other games that had more of a focus on platforming.
Well, I do want to mention though that there's one level that comes to mind. I want to say it's a Green Hill XP. It's a level that has like 3 paths, and you can kind of jump between them when you go through the rings.
Yeah.
And I thought that level was really fun. I want to say there was like a chemical plant level that also had some of the more Sweet Mountain-esque platforming. I'm thinking of like the section in Sweet Mountain Act 1 where there's like a laser thing and a bunch of egg pawns on it. Or there's, what the hell is the name of that level where Sonic escapes from the Death Egg and Forces?
Egggate?
Egggate, yes. It kind of reminded me of some of the platforming areas in that. There was like a chemical plant level that was kind of like that. And obviously there was the recycled Adventure 2 levels as well, which I also want to mention because I think for a while now, there has been, I think part of the reason you guys called it the meta era is because it was self-referential and it kept kind of going back to these same old tropes, most of them like classic Sonic tropes.
Yeah.
It's like, we gotta have Green Hill in every fucking game, even though Green Hill's not that interesting. Its only claim to fame is being the first Sonic level. That's it. And I like the fact that they actually bothered to reference something that wasn't a classic game in this game. And I'm talking about the story too.
In theory, I feel like that makes sense, although it's kind of hard for it to feel like a reference when you're just playing Sky Rail with a Green Hill coat of paint.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what made it surprising, though, and I know King and you and I had talked about this on Twitter before the game came out, like they did a reveal for the Sky Rail level on their Twitter, and I was just like, why the hell would I want to play Sky Rail if it looks nothing like Sky Rail? Which I think is still true to an extent, but it did make it more fun for me when I'm playing a level that looks like some other level, and then I realized, wait a minute, this is Spagonia Act 3-2 or whatever. Wait a minute, this is Metal Harbor. And that had like a pang of engagement where I realized what I was playing.
The cyberspace levels are like mystery boxes. You never know what you're gonna get.
Well, the truth.
I understood that reference.
There was one.
To be fair, it's not as badly written as a J.J. Abrams movie, but we'll get to that.
I wasn't even trying to reference that. That's funny. I'm sorry.
There was one that was from Unleashed, and it was the one where it's like you have to run like 3 laps around this place, and you have to like hit the little dash rings, and you have to like homing attack the balloons and everything. I had a moment
because
like
Spagonia one.
I think that was like the first S rank I ever got in Unleashed, so like I got to do it again. I'm like, oh, that's pleasant. So like, yeah, you know, there was like something like there was a moment where it's just like, oh, I know what that is, but that faded pretty quick after maybe like a second for me, because again, like I would just be like, well, I mean, it's cool that it's cool that they pulled from Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Unleashed, but at the same time, it's like, well, like what a lot of people have already said, is just like I would rather just play those versions like from the originals than.
I had like an opposite effect to that, where I remember I played the Metal Harbor stage, and after I beat it, I was like, that seemed awfully familiar, but I really didn't like that level, so how could that be familiar? And I played it again, and I'm like, oh, this is supposed to be Metal Harbor. And I was like, oh, that's cute.
I want to share one of my favorite memories in this game, and that was playing Green Forest. And so I climb up the little, you do the half loops in the tree, or whatever Green Hill would call it. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe one of the red rings is back over here where the Mystic Melody is. So you can actually go homing attack these buzz bombers.
I know where this is going.
Where the Mystic Melody is, and they actually bothered to put it in the level, the location, the platform, and there's nothing there. There's literally nothing.
Is my biggest problem. But go on.
But then, to add insult to injury, you're like, okay, there's nothing where the Mystic Melody is. Okay, all right, fine. And then you go to the checkpoint right after it, and there's just a red ring just sitting right there, like, hi, how you doing? Just right in the middle of the road. That's nice.
I think that's a good time to mention, and I think, Ryan, you're going this way too, that the red ring placements in this game are at best inconsistent in their funness.
Yeah, I found, like I said, I found that like most of the stages in the last island, they had I actually had to put in a little effort to find the red rings, as opposed to them just being placed on the beaten path,
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why something like Generations and even Lost World and Forces to an extent, that was part of what made them replayable, is that you go back, you try to find these collectible hidden rings, and you had to think outside of the box a little bit, but in here it's just, hey, they're right there. Just go get it. You know, it's not really engaging, and a lot of these were pretty easy to S rank, which also this time around, like in order, like there are like different objectives, which I do like. You know, collect X amount of rings, get the red rings, beat it this time. I like that. Mm-hmm. But like, you can do almost all of these objectives at the same time with little to no effort. So I like what they were trying to do in terms of like that kind of structure, but like there is no reason to go back to these stages after you beat them for the first time. There's nothing to look for, you know? It's like, oh yeah, cool. You have all these branching paths and all of these like different locations and different routes and everything like that, but the one that's going to have all of the goodies and the one that's going to like be the fastest route is going to be the normal path. It's going to be the path that you just, you know, you're running straight. And that's not fun.
I also want to add that something I realized, I was in like some chemical plant level, and I think it was literally, it was like literally Generations chemical plant, and I'm going in all these like high paths that I would think the red rings would be on, you know, because that's just normally how it would be, but they're not there. They're instead, you know, just right the fuck there in the middle of a road. So, and I realized at some point while playing that, I'm like, this is an intentional choice, because the S ranks in this game are based on time. So it feels to me like they realized the S ranks are based on time. So it's kind of antithetical to time to hide the red rings. So we're gonna put the red rings on the main path so that the player can potentially do it in one run. And feel good like that, and it feels really sloppy to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that the challenge they wanted to get was that some of them are like, ooh, you better get that red ring in 5 nanoseconds, or else you're gonna start this stage over again. But like,
the skateboarding level had one where you have to like go over a ramp over a car, and you have to like land just right in order to get the ring, and if you don't get it, you can't go back. It's like a Pac-Man World 2 scuba effect.
And King was watching me play this, but like the Metal Harbor stage, I had the hardest time with the last one, because I kept trying to turn my skateboard, and he's just not moving in the angle I want, so I kept missing the red ring. But then I had to keep going back to the checkpoint, and it's just like the controls kept fucking me over, because then I run to the rocket where you're supposed to fly away, but then Sonic just runs through it and I just died. And I was like, oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah, but I want to say that section still controls better than the actual rocket silo section from the real SA2, where you have to like awkwardly spin dash jump upwards in order to get to the top rocket in time and get those bonus points for the A rank. That
wouldn't be a problem if he didn't fall over when he
Why
hits a
does
dash
he
panel.
fall over?
It's like, I don't know. I felt that there was like, it's technically a bit more polished. I don't feel like there's necessarily, like I was playing those SA2 levels and I'm like, I guess SA2 in some ways is more jank at times, which I can kind of appreciate about this game, but then I'm like, well, the floor of what I can do, or the ceiling of what I can do, is so like limited because Sonic's airspeed is so slow. And they like intended for this, because I realized in that level with Green Hill, where you're just going forward like the whole time, and there's like 3 pathways, and you get launched in the air and have to move left and right through the spike rings. Sonic moves through the air really far, and they knew this, which is why that level is designed that way. But that also means that when you're trying to make a jump, a tiny jump, Sonic has Mario 64 turning, like,
yes,
and it's like the widest turn radius. I think that my old Kia Sedona was able to turn a bit better than that. I did not have fun in these levels one bit. No, sorry.
Well, generally speaking, I think that's just kind of like translates to the open zone stuff, where it's like, I don't think Sonic controls poorly in Frontiers, which is a misconception people had from my video. I don't think the game controls poorly. It's the usage of those controls where I'm like, this ain't it. Like, turning as Sonic, like, this is like the best turning around has felt in a long time, but then it's like, you know, you jump, and this is Cyberspace and the regular gameplay, you jump and all that is just dead. Like, you'll be on Island 3 and you just want to, like, jump over the lava, and just, I'm boosting, going full speed, I'm going to do a jump, and I lose all my momentum, the air boost is too limp to save me, I fall in the lava and die.
You know, okay, so that is something else, like, not to linger too much more into Cyberspace, because, like, I think we're just about done with Cyberspace, right? Like,
yeah, pretty much.
So
I think the only thing I would have left to say about it, for one thing, I liked I'm gonna say this. I think the first island had the worst Cyberspace stages overall.
I think I could agree with that.
Yeah,
definitely
probably.
Wasn't a good first impression.
Where it's kind of like that first Green Hill level plays, and you're just kind of gobsmacked, because like the very first section you get to is like a part where you run around some boxes, and it just feels like it's not sensitive enough. I think Unleashed has a similar section with the same problem, ironically. And then you play like the 1-2 level with the impossible S rank for no reason.
It's my internet dying.
Oh, I think
I was gonna say.
Oh, I think Exo cut off.
I think
Okay.
his internet died.
Exo, no.
Just keep it recording.
Yeah.
If he didn't lose power, then he'd rather we all keep recording.
Can you still hear me?
There we
Now
go.
we can.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I dropped out of Discord like...
Ah!
Oh
The fucking Discord. The Sega ninjas got him.
no! Oh my god.
So, you boys come here often?
Yeah.
All right, sorry folks, we had some technical difficulties and I got cut off. So I'm gonna wrap up Cyberspace real quick. I liked that the levels were short and sweet. That's kind of my thing, is I feel like modern platformers all have levels that are way too goddamn long. And in a sense, I kind of appreciated that some of the red rings were easy. They didn't need to all be easy, but like the fact that some of them, I didn't have to go out of my way to find all of them. I replayed Colors last night, like I said, and the red rings in Aquarium Park suck donkey dicks because the levels are really tall and it's hard to figure out where they are. And I appreciate that there was
level in particular is one of the most annoying to... I know which one you're talking about too, specifically. The most annoying Aquarium Park act. I don't even remember which act, but yeah, it's pretty awful.
So, and I think that was a problem with like Kirby and the Forgotten Land as well, where it's like the game's really good, but the 100% experience is god awful. And we could talk about that in the end of the year podcast a little bit more. So
Cool.
I appreciated that the levels were short and sweet. I appreciated that I didn't have to play the levels 10 times to find all the red rings, because that just slows the pace down. And I thought it was a good collection of levels, and then it improved, my experience with them improved as the game went on. But I think part of the reason the earlier ones in the first island suck so much is because they're too short. They're like forces short. Whereas I found that they got just the right length later on. And that was kind of like part of, you got to have like a ramping difficulty curve, so that's probably why they did that. So yeah, that's all I got to say.
Biggest death sentences, and after this we can go to the open zone stuff, but I kind of do want to fit this in here, is that like, we talked about how there is customization for your controls, but all of that gets thrown out the window when you do Cyberspace for some reason. It's like, so like the game controls completely different when you're in the open zone than when you're in Cyberspace, and it's jarring, and I never got used to it.
It feels like the Cyberspace levels are so rigidly designed that they just did not want to account for customizable controls in them. And
it was like, there was an interview with Kishimoto where he was like, oh yeah, you can customize your controls, but you can't do that in Cyberspace because we want you to have a specific kind of experience. And that that's not exactly what he said, but I got like massive, we do not put sugar in tea vibes,
Yeah, no, I thought that exact same thing when I saw that interview.
I had forgotten about that.
And also, like, the very first like Sonic Rangers leak that was talking about an open world Sonic game, it was like, yeah, you also go to like Cyberspace, and these are like Unleashed and Generations levels, and these are like boost stages, and at that point we didn't know what the open world controlled like really. So you know, I had this image in my head like, oh, well, you'd go to Cyberspace and you'd be flying through waterfalls and shit like that, but it feels like this super like, you're in a platforming video game.
Well, yeah, I think that's the crux of why I don't like these levels at all, frankly. And this is going to sound maybe a little harsh, but I just think this is the worst the boost has ever been, personally.
In Cyberspace, I can agree.
I don't think that's an exaggeration on my part. I've sat with it for a while. I've played the game several times. This is the least fun that I've had with the boost kinds of levels. I prefer all of the other ones. I think Colors had like really good platforming. I really enjoyed Colors' it wasn't as like explosive as Unleashed or Generations could be, but I honestly enjoy platforming and collecting the red rings in that game and trying to get S ranks and stuff. And I think the Wisps offer a lot of cool opportunities, whereas like Generations and Unleashed are they focus a little bit more on their spectacle, and I enjoy the quick reaction timing that comes with that. I realized I just got the Forces, and I don't know what to say. I guess that they were original levels.
I was about to say
what I can say about Forces is that like the boost is fucking powerful.
The boost feels like a boost.
Yeah, it's like you're a fucking. He's a bullet.
Bit faster too.
Yeah. And it's just like you just plow through like even when you're like because like this game kind of does like a similar thing that Forces does, where like when you air boost, you kind of like go up a little bit and then you descend.
Yeah.
But like when you do that in Forces, it's like, you know, you have like the little aura around you that like blows enemies away. Yes. So you feel like a bullet, and it feels like maybe I'm overhyping it, I don't know, but like for me that felt really fucking good to just like spam that.
If Frontiers had the air boost from Forces, the game would be like way more fun.
It would feel better
across the board, top to bottom.
Yeah,
because I genuinely think Forces like handles a lot better than Cyberspace does. Like I really do think Cyberspace makes Sonic Forces look like Sonic Generations.
I think even if it did control like Forces, to be honest, the lack of any unique identity to the stages would still make me say that I think this is the worst that Boost has been, because it really it drove home playing these levels that I have to be like, hey, you remember that level with the like skateboard? Because I can't like point to a level, like I can't be like, this is fucking Aquarium Park, or this is fucking Spagonia, or this is like I just can't, because it's like this level that looks like it was made in like I don't say this in a derogatory way necessarily, keep in mind, but it was like there was a Green Hill level generator that they used or something that was like, it doesn't have an identity that I can grasp, because it plays like a bunch of random. Otani decided he was going to be like an EDM DJ this game, and he was like, I'm going to make like 46 Cyberspace songs, and they all sound really good to me, but like I can't pin any of these songs to any one level. They can't stick out in my mind like a lot of the previous games did, and I think all of that coalesces into an experience that just thoroughly bored me, and I don't want to go into those levels again.
I agree with you, but there's one exception. It's 1-2, and we all know why, because we were all in there trying to fucking S rank that. So that song is just burned in our brain. So
going into.
I just thought when Kishimoto said like, "Oh, we want you to experience these levels this way," that meant this. Well, I mean, I already knew what the Cyberspace levels were at that point, but like, you know, you hear him say that and you think, oh, is this going to be some based action set piece that he's like, you won't want to interfere with these controls? But I don't know. I felt like they felt like randomly generated levels.
You know, Jeb, what was funny too is that like, the leak was like, yo, they have levels from Unleashed and Generations. Boy, did it!
Yeah, it sure did. Yeah.
I was actually surprised at how well the adventure ones played with these physics.
They had like stretch it out a little bit.
What were you gonna say, Jay?
I was just thinking about with what King was saying. Is just the lack of identity is like the main thing. You were saying this in your video, and I was pretty much saying the same thing in mine. Where it's like the fact that we have, like, people were getting tired of the constant Green Hill and Chemical Plant for all like Sonic 4, Generations, Lost World, Mania, Forces, and then now this is like the ultimate manifestation of that, where you have like 50 levels where they're all Green Hill, Chemical Plant, Sky Sanctuary, and City. It's just like, you can't look back at it and be like, oh yeah, that level was really good. I don't know, it was just like Green Hill -12. I mean,
it does make it harder for me to describe the levels I really liked.
And I feel like that's like where we're just losing identity. It's just, you know, Generations was like celebrating all the unique level themes that these games had come up with over 20 years, but it's just, you
Somehow
think about
it
the
managed
last...
to pick like 12 hill levels and 12 city levels.
Well, there weren't that many levels to begin with in Generations, only 9 of them.
You know what I mean, sir. I was gonna say
Also,
something, but now I've forgotten.
It feels like the shrines in Breath of, like, people say, oh, well, just think of these levels like not as Sonic levels in the traditional sense. They're like a small part of a game. Think of them like the shrines in Breath of the Wild. I'm like, well, yeah, I think that was the intention, but I think they forgot the fact that maybe not most people, but a lot of people criticize the shrines for blending in and for being, you know, sometimes variable in quality and, you know, feeling just kind of weird and there and just not, you know.
You know what's also funny about the shrines is that each shrine had like a name.
Yeah, that's true. Oh my
like,
god.
Trial of the Blue Flame, A Test of Strength, Trial of Power, Trial of Wisdom, shit like that.
If you guys want names for your level, may I recommend a mod by the fabulous Geek Critique that adds level names to Frontiers.
Really? Oh, I have not heard of this.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were making doing a joke where you're like, may I recommend our $5 level name DLC? Get it now.
So we got to make sure that my doesn't starve somehow.
No.
Well, I mean, that was Cyberspace, so who wants to lead us into the open zone conversation?
Open zone.
Oh, it's an open zone.
So we have to make sure
open zone.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't mean to barge in.
By all means, you're our guest. Both of you.
Yeah.
Well, you're already in the room, so why not just barge in?
Yeah! Floor's yours.
Well, technically, by definition, you cannot barge into a room you are already in.
But Jeb, if you're gonna barge, you gotta bang the table. At least twice.
I can't fucking believe that in the pre-release...
Jeb's been drinking so much Kool-Aid that his arms have atrophied and he can barely slap that table.
In pre-release, there was an Azuka interview that was like... which, by the way, I hear that it's pronounced Izuka, but I don't know if I'll ever say it like that, so... he was like, I think that a lot of people just don't. This you can't compare this to other open world games because this is not an open world game, hun. This is an open zone. Okay, this is an open zone. You've never played an open zone game before. Okay, so a lot of people just they don't like these great IGN previews, so they don't understand open zone yet. I know that it's pretty hard. You know, Forces is like...
pretty hard to understand something for which we've been given like 2 minutes of footage of and haven't had the opportunity to play a demo of.
Yeah, so like, I don't know, that was a really bad sign. Even like, okay, I obviously was exaggerating it a bit, but like, no matter how you read it, that was not a very promising interview about Open Zone. And it just... I think there was another interview too that was like, we thought that Forces was the end point of where platforming gameplay, 3D platforming gameplay from Sonic Adventure can go. We thought that there was nowhere else to go after this, so we went open zone. And that's just really funny to me for obvious reasons, but it's also like, you feel like open zone, the way they talk about it, is just this unfathomable concept. Sonic in an open environment? This has not been done like at all.
It's not an open environment.
It's an open
zone.
Okay. You might look at Sonic Utopia, you might think, oh, that's pretty cool. Fuck that. This is an open zone. You don't know shit. And then I play the game, and I'm walking around. There's someone I was talking to recently who said that you're walking around doing Among Us tasks. Yeah. That's what I feel. That's my introduction to Open Zone. There you go.
Oh, that's amazing.
I was just playing Among Us last night, actually.
I feel like that's a little bit unfair.
No, it's an exaggeration.
I mean, I agree with you, Exo. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not. They're not Among Us tasks, but having said that, I really could go for some Among Us.
I can't grind on rails in Among Us yet.
I can't shoot laser beams out of my feet in Among Us.
Jeb, the problem is that we already blew our crossover budget on Fall Guys, so you're not getting that Among Us Sonic level for a while.
Oh no. By the way, at the time of recording, there's apparently going to be more DLC collaborations, maybe with Capcom, so that sounds fun.
I want there to be DLC for Resident Evil 4 where Sonic has a gun. I want it.
Shoots all the robots.
Yes.
I don't want there to be like Resident Evil or Devil May Cry DLC for Frontiers, because that'll be my one weakness and have to force me to play the game again.
That's why I want it to happen.
Yeah.
It's like you're fighting the robots and they go, Arralelo!
I mean, it already has the music down for Devil May Cry.
Yeah, I mean, literally, we got some DMC5 beats in these boss fights, so I mean, it works for me.
Hell yeah. Music fucking slaps.
Un forastero!
You know, that's not even like the proper Spanish that's supposed to be used in that region of the world. That's a fun fact I learned in the comments section. Resident Evil 4 really fucked it up. The remake is apparently fixing that.
Nice.
Oh, man.
So
they speak Castilian instead of like Basque or Catalan.
I have no idea what any of those words mean.
What we know as Spanish is actually Castilian. Because Spain is made up of a bunch of different regions that all have their own different languages. Like Barcelona is in Catalonia, and they speak Catalan. So while I was there in Barcelona, I had to ask people, ¿Hablas tú el castellano? To know if they actually spoke Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So, there you go.
Mucho interesante.
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
I was about to say Taco Bell. Goddamn.
I keep stealing y'all's thunder. I'm sorry. I don't know what's on me today.
Jeb. You could always be the Mexican robot.
What? Okay, I'm not.
No.
We're getting to the Drake and Josh. So, what does everybody?
Anyways, Open Zone.
So, what do y'all think?
What does everybody think about the Open Zone?
Okay, well. Here.
Oh wait, we're still doing the thing. Like,
I think it's cool. Next.
wait, what happened? I need like a rewind of the last 30 seconds.
We're talking about the hit video game Sonic Frontiers, released on
the worst game of all time.
PlayStation 5.
That game sucks.
But Jay, I thought you said it was okay.
I mean, that's the hard thing, Ryan. Is that just every time I want to be like, man, that game was awful. Every time I'm just like, oh man, but it wasn't actually awful. It was just kind of, it was okay. I didn't hate the game. It was all right. Man, it sucked. Oh, I just wanted to say just that what Exo was saying. I'm listening to a track called "The Shady Workshop" from Professor Layton versus Ace Attorney. It just really makes me laugh. Just the accompanying background sound. Just no context needed. I'm just going to say that. So anyway, Open Zone. Well, I mean, I thought that I was saying this earlier, that like the premise of Sonic in an open world really is easy to make fun. Because of the fact that all you need to do is just boost and jump off of ramps and shit and then go flying, and it would be really fun to play. But as I was saying before, you can't do that, so therefore I didn't have that much fun.
Okay.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, so here's a hot take for y'all. You guys all know that that one of EXO's favorite games of all time is a little game called Super Mario Sunshine for the Nintendo GameCube. And that is a game that has some sections in it that are arguably terrible. And it has a lot of flaws, but it's also a game whose funness stems from its messiness and the fact that it's not quite polished. Same with the ukulele to an extent, where it's just like, you can completely skip chunks of platforming in that game with the right movement, and that's part of what makes it fun. And Frontiers, to me, has a similar appeal, where it's like, I agree, Jay, some better physics interactions with the terrain would have added a lot to this game and made it even more fun, but I really enjoyed getting memory tokens in this game. I actually got every single one of them, because I was having so much fun that I couldn't, like...
Is there a finite number of memory tokens?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I just kind of thought you could, like, grind them by, like, running in a circle.
Yeah, I thought there was a finite number of, like, gears, but not tokens.
No, there are a finite number of tokens, and each one of them has its own little platforming section.
I take it you don't get anything
No,
for
not
getting
even
all
an
of them.
achievement, which kind of sucks, but I enjoyed playing those little platforming sections so much and trying to get everything so much. Kind of reminds me of my favorite thing ever, blue coins from Sunshine, which I love getting. There's a finite number of those as well.
I actually, when you go into cyberspace, there was like a time where I went into cyberspace and I started humming to myself the Mario Sunshine, do 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 do, and I kind of was walking around sometimes, and I'm like, wait a minute, this kind of does feel like a collectathon.
In my opinion,
game,
that's exactly what the game is, and that's why I loved it so much. Because I think a lot of the pre-release material made it look like Botwa. That's what I call Breath of the Wild, everybody. Botwa, which is a game I do not like very much. We mentioned the shrines earlier. I feel like that in the towers and the divine beasts are the only real worthwhile content in that game. There's a lot of space in the game, but there's not a lot of worthwhile things to do. Like, you can collect shit and craft things, I guess, and cook, but none of that makes the exploration fun, and Link is slow as ass, and it takes him forever to climb things. I just don't like it. And part of the reason why I liked Halo Infinite so much more is because you had vehicles, you had the grapple shot, which you could do a whole bunch of cool movement tricks with, like grapple shotting around a tree to get some distance and move faster. And what I also liked is that the level design is relatively compact and it ramps up. Like I want to say I saw something on Twitter where islands 1, 3, and 5, or 1, 4, and 5 were originally one island that they later split into 3 later on, which I think was the right call, because they start you out with Kronos Island and it's relatively compact. It's like, it's an open zone, but it's not so big that you feel overwhelmed with all the shit that there is to do, and it allows you to ease into the game better. And it's not until you get to Ares Island where it gets huge. And then from there, you go to, Chaos Island, which is a little bit more split in a bunch of little mini islands, which I also appreciated. Is like, one of the things that kind of bugs me about...
That was actually where I was getting the most annoyed.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was the splitting islands in the 2D sections, but
hey, not to break immersion for the viewers, but I think EXO might be a little delayed thanks to Discord.
Okay, I gotta give Frontiers one thing.
Right?
Those were the most realistic computer animated gloves I've ever seen. I think they spent more time on those gloves than making the game good.
Seriously?
And no, I'm not joking.
Are you kidding?
Seriously though,
gloves
look at those
didn't look that good.
gloves.
look at them. Ryan, I like how that your like game dude impression is almost like a TWIP impression. It's like, look at the gloves.
Look at the glove. I'm gonna go eat some digestives.
I'd like to throw a drink at whoever
why do they
created
call
these
them
gloves.
digestives?
Why are there birds in my Sonic game?
So wait a minute.
Giant
anthro purple cats, regular dog.
Walking a dog.
Yeah, Sonic Frontiers is a game that happened.
I think what I was saying before Discord decided to fuck me over is that the game seemed to market itself, and I think this is part of what Izuka was saying, is that the game seemed to bill itself as like a Botwa type game where you run around a giant open world and who the fuck knows what you're gonna do with it because they haven't told us anything yet. And I think that if they had marketed...
No, you can't say that, Exo. They came out publicly and said there is absolutely no inspiration from Breath of the Wild.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they actually did say that.
Yeah.
Didn't they say something along the lines of they were more inspired by Mario Odyssey than Breath of the Wild? Or
I don't think they did.
Well, like that, it makes sense when they say that, but like to say that they're not going for Breath of the Wild feels a little
disingenuous.
Yes.
Yeah.
The game visually actually reminded me, well, at least in the foresty parts of Halo Infinite, more than Botwa, really. Especially those giant ring-like set structures.
Yeah, and also just like with the Chaos Island in particular, like there's like this part where like if you look down and you just see like the kind of hexagons that were in Halo Infinite. Yeah. But there's nothing there.
Something I've also always thought to myself is that, like, I don't know if this makes sense, but I kind of feel like they would have gone with the Breath of the Wild, like, art style or something like it in a way, if it didn't mean that it would probably take a bit of work to do that when they could just reuse assets from Forces and Generations.
You know what's funny about that, though, is that, like, I feel like as if they were to do a more Breath of the Wild art style, it probably would have ran a lot better.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of weird. Like you think that a simpler art style would be easier to make and would make the game run better and not pop in and shit, but it also would probably take them some time to do it.
Yeah,
I get, like, you know, compared to Forces.
Well, that is a question I had, because obviously I played on PC. And I want to say, Jeb, did you play it on PC too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
And obviously, I want to say King and Jay both played the Switch version as well. I might be remembering wrong.
I didn't play it on Switch. Ryan played on Switch. I played on PS5.
I played a little bit on Switch. Yes.
Yeah.
But I played on Switch and PS5. I mostly played on PS5.
Ryan played on PS4.
I am curious what the performance is like on console. Because for me on PC, and I have a pretty beastly PC, which is already showing its age, I couldn't even get this game to run at 4K the full time. I had to do a 75% internal resolution scale to keep up, keep my fans from going into overdrive. But that's still pretty good, and it kept a solid 60 after I did that. So I'm curious what it was like on console.
Well, thankfully, there's a mode to get it to run at 60. There's like a 4K mode, which is 30.
Okay.
And there's a 60 mode. I do not know what the resolution is, because I don't think it even says what it is.
I think it's 1080, isn't it?
I would assume it's 1080, but I don't know. But it makes it run at 60.
Okay.
So,
which that's only on PS5. On PS4, I don't think there is a 60 option.
But like it ran at a consistent 30. Like I didn't experience any dips or anything. Pop-in is the same, of course, but frame rate, it was consistent.
If you want to have a heart attack, you should play the game on Switch because it is actually very hilarious how that game runs.
So, King, you beat the game on Switch, right?
I did beat it on Switch.
Okay, because like I played the first island on Switch. I didn't really have any frame drops or anything like that. But when you get to like the later parts, how does that go?
I'm surprised you didn't have frame drops on the first island, because those were definitely there for me. It was pretty much just I think it was like a sub 30 for most of the game, honestly.
Yikes.
And the pop-in is not just like the objects, it's like the grass on the ground has a radius of like 5 centimeters around your character. It's actually quite incredible sometimes looking at it.
Oh.
But you know what? It runs, I guess.
At least I could
kind of surprised they even got it working.
I just got reminded of this moment where even on PC, you get to the part where they have like the teaser at Game Awards, and it shows this like sweeping shot of a landscape, and the grass is cascading in, and shit's popping in, and I think Azura, or however you pronounce it, is just kind of waddling, and it just looks so fucking funny. And that's on PC, and I don't even know how that shot looks on Switch, but I don't know if I want to imagine it, because it was just, the trees were popping in. Okay, it was...
If I may be critical of a game I like, I do think that it was kind of baffling that the PC version does not have any level of detail settings you can customize for that kind of stuff. Because it's like, you got a big open world game, you got to keep the frame rate consistent somehow, especially if you're inexplicably doing a realistic art style for whatever reason. And it's like, but if you're on PC, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to crank up the level of detail distance so that you can't physically see flowers popping up in front of you. And I actually found that Islands 1, 4, and 5 seemed to be more processor intensive than Islands 2 and 3 because of all the foliage. So I probably could have run Islands 2 and 3 in full 4K and just fine, and my fan would have been cool with it. But it's like those flowers just like completely ramp it up. So that's probably why they did what they did, but it's like, it's PC, you should be able to customize that kind of thing. I shouldn't need a mod for that. So yeah.
It just, I don't know. I mean, in terms of visuals, I think this game is pretty below the bar. It has places that look nice, but it's, I don't know. The fact that it, even on PS5, can't do 4K 60, but it also doesn't really look like that impressive is like, well, kind of weird. And the fact that that's the case on PC, and then there's not really many options for it either, is like, you look at a lot of games that are a bit more cutting edge, and they have a shit zillion options, to make sure that a lot of people can at least play the game. Yeah, that's just not really here either.
Maybe somebody mentioned it already, but like, what was the pop-in like on PC? Like, because that was the worst part for me visually on console.
It's about
the
same.
Terrible.
Yeah.
And usually I have like a high tolerance for that kind of thing, but it was detrimental to a point. XO, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
I do want to mention, like, I brought up Halo Infinite a few times, so I guess we all have. That game also was released on Xbox One, so it's not like Series X optimized or anything. But even my PC, I had to lower the internal resolution of that game to 1080p in order to get it to run consistently on my machine. And I have like an RTX 2080 and 32 gigs of RAM and an i7 9700K, and like, I had to put that game on 1080p, so I can only imagine what that runs like on Xbox One. And that's a game with a realistic art style that I think we would agree is more impressive than Sonic Forces was, or Sonic Frontiers. If that game can't run at native 4K 60, I can't blame this game for looking kind of meh, considering what they were trying to do in terms of like the scope of the environments. And it's like, it sucks that there's nothing to disguise the pop-in or make it like, ideally what they would have done is some kind of fog effect on the platforms that pop in so that they like sort of fade in from transparent instead of just appearing in the next frame.
They were
ideally that's what they would have done.
Something like that. There was a clip a while ago where if you watch like Sonic move around, there was a platform that like kind of faded in. I forget when this was. This was like after the IGN stuff, and when people started to get more excited for the game too. But like, like it was when Sonic did like the parry on like that wheel enemy. Like there was a fade-in effect, but it's not here for some reason.
Well, somebody once mentioned to me that like the way it could have been done is just have some kind of, you don't even need to do like a full-on kryptonite fog. They probably could have tried like some kind of like a cyberspace effect to like warp in like the rails and the platforms in the sky. It might have made it a little more like cohesive.
Yeah.
I think you could do simpler, just dither them.
He said the thing.
Well, I was playing Xenoblade 3 on the Switch, and the shit like gets dithered in, and it's I'm like the radius of which stuff is coming in is not too, different from Frontiers, but it just looks so much less distracting. It's pretty amazing just what a simple little thing like that can do.
You know what else they probably could have done, where it's like you could like get rid of all like the floating platforms and the floating grind rails and shit like that, and just have like a spring, and then if you hit the spring, suddenly the platforms and grind rails kind of like load in and be like, woo, and then like, oh hey, look, I'm in a challenge now because I hit a spring, and whoa, I'm doing all this crazy stuff, and I got a token, I got some rings and shit like that. Like there were definitely ways to work around it, and also I think that way also it wouldn't look so awkward with all this floating crap all over the place.
I'm going to disagree. Part of what made the open zone so much fun for me, and to be clear to everybody in the audience, the open zone is the reason I loved the game.
I will agree with you.
I like Cyberspace more than any of you guys, but if that was the whole game, it wouldn't have really, that wouldn't have been enough for me to love it. And part of the reason I loved open zone so much was looking around, and I would see those floating platforms that you're talking about, and I would see a memory token that I hadn't gotten yet. I'd be like, well, shit, how am I supposed to get up there? And then I would have to look around and figure out how to get up there. And sometimes I'd be like, wait a minute, I can climb up on this grind rail and go to a completely different platforming section and use a boost jump plus a double jump to get over there in a way that the devs didn't intend. And that's the part of the game that was so much fun for me, was figuring out ways to break it, or figuring out how to even get to the places that the developers did intend for me to go. And if everything was separated by springs, then that engagement wouldn't be there, because it would be just like, oh, I guess here's a spring I didn't go to before.
I guess I was more so just like thinking of ways on how they could have masked the pop-in and everything so it doesn't look so distracting. Sure. Because like I definitely did that a lot of times, where it's like, oh hey, I want to get to this part of the island. It's like with the first one, I was trying to figure out like there's like a cyberspace stage way off, like on its own little isolated island, and like I would look for like grind rails or for springs or anything like that could take me to that to that place. So like I get it. It just still looks very like I have done it myself. I see the appeal, but just visually it looks very cluttered and unappealing.
There was one time on Chaos Island, I remember, I wish I was recording it, where I did a super fucking massive jump off a rail, because that's the only thing you can do a super massive jump off of in this game without speedrunning techniques.
Or mods.
Or mods. I did a jump, and this 2D section popped in front of me, and that I didn't see before, and I was like, oh no! And then I landed on a dash panel that was in the 2D section right there, and then got stuck in the 2D section when I just wanted to jump across the island like a badass,
You said that was the third island, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was.
We need to talk about the third island, I think.
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't know. That was like the one time it's affected gameplay in a sense that it was not just distracting.
Well, what I guess on that note, like, what do we think is like the best island? Like, which part was the highlight?
My favorite island was Island 2.
Island 2?
Ares, definitely.
Yeah, Island 2 is the best.
What about you, XO?
Either Island 2 or Island 5.
I
like both of those.
I do too. I like Island 5. Like, it's kind of crummy that like it uses the same. Oh, look at me go! It uses the same archetype, like grassy plains and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I think there were more interesting things going on with the ruins. I think, again, structurally, it's more interesting and feels like a lot bigger. And also, that's also where the best cyberspace stages were, and also where the best fights were, or some of the best fights, because a lot of them were actually kind of challenging. All the upgraded ninja fights are really cool. I thought the tower fights were really fun. I thought the caterpillar was pretty neat. So I thought that was definitely a highlight for me. So, but Island 2 is also very good.
Speaking of fights, we should probably talk about the combat system in this game.
Oh boy, make way for Jay.
Make way for Jay.
Combo man. Combo man.
Combo king.
Me. I structured my video in a way to where I had talked about the combat at first, because with Island 1, I was highly unimpressed. I mean, you start with the basic button mashing combos, and then I unlocked this kick beam where Sonic sends lasers out of his feet, which decimates everything on the first island. And I was like, that's it? You don't even have to try. You have to hold down the button, and that's it. It's just, and then parrying works the same way, where you just have to hold down buttons and you're guaranteed victory. So I said later in the video that once I unlocked more moves, I was having more fun with it, stringing the various combos together that you do get, although I still find it kind of weak, where it's the combos are more cutscene than fighting. It's just waiting for animations to play out, and animations that don't feel finished a lot of the time, where Sonic's hand beams, or those that attack where he stands on midair and sends Sonic jump balls at enemies. It's
you wanted to see him
do what is going on?
Dragon Ball mid-air repeated punching animation.
Yeah, there's this one, it's Shadow Rush, where he's doing the super duper fast animation, and in any other action game, I think that'd be the coolest fucking shit. And in this game, it literally just kind of feels like Sonic's model is popping around, and it doesn't really have great sound design to the point where it's if I feel like there's they're trying to do something cool with the combat here, but all it makes me think of is I would like to go play a Dragon Ball game right now. Or, when I could string shit together in the end, especially in the supersonic fights, I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool, but I also kind of feel like it's cool in the I'm pressing buttons and a thing is dying kind of way. The combat, I don't know. It's it wasn't really expected to be the most deep shit, but I think it has the baseline level of satisfaction where it is a combat system. It's not Rise of Lyric necessarily, but I think I would still take the Werehog most definitely.
Yes.
No, I can't agree with that.
Are you kidding?
No, I would take the Werehog over this.
Yeah.
Why would you not take the Werehog over this, Viral?
Well, I mean, funny enough, I think a lot of it has to do with the sound design. One of the things I didn't like about the Werehog was it felt as if a lot of the attacks felt a little weak, especially when an enemy is blocking. It just doesn't do anything. It's just beep. And it didn't feel that good.
Yeah.
And some of the combat, in Unleashed was, I like the Werehog, or I like it enough anyways. But it felt... I don't know how to put it. I felt that the ones, or the attacks that you do in Frontiers it's more flashy. And I think you can do a lot of really cool stuff. I like the counter where it's if you get hit and you press X at the right time, he'll turn into a ball, and the camera pans, and you get this really cool angle of Sonic drilling through this guy and then kicking him in the air and then kicking him back down.
Yeah, I thought there were a lot of really cool looking things, and I thought it was satisfying. I'm just thinking, not my preferred combat system.
I think it's fair to say that something like the Werehog is mechanically deeper, but yes. I think, I would... I guess it depends on game to game, but in terms of this, it's a lot flashier. And I've already seen I've already seen a few combo mad videos on Twitter, and I'm not gonna lie, like some of that shit looks really fucking cool. It's like I want to know how to do some of that stuff because it's fun, and it's fun, it's flashy, it feels good.
Can you go combo mad in this game?
It is flashier than the Werehog, but I feel like
shit.
the Werehog
it's kind of
better animated still.
I'm pretty much with Jeb on this one, where it's like, or Jay, I can't remember who said this exactly, where it's like, first island, I want to say one of the first combat sequences, you fight like a ninja on Kronos Island underneath like a little dome. And I was just like, wow, this is bad. And then later on, you get stuff like the Stomp and the Sonic Boom, I think it's called. And my favorite was the Spin Slash, where he goes in a circle. That looked really cool. And then like once you got more of those, and I sort of figured out how to use them consistently, and I learned to rely on the parry more. I'm not even sure why the fuck there's a dodge in this game, since there's nothing you can't parry, it seems. And then the parry is so...
the final boss.
Well, we can talk about the final boss later when we get to the bot. Well, actually, we could probably talk about them next, since we're talking about combat anyway. But it's like, my experience with it was that you mash Y a few times, and then you press another button to do one of the special moves. And I found, like, I tried stringing them together, and sometimes he would do a stomp after I did that kick attack, the loop kick, where you, like, boost into an enemy and then press B to do, like, a loop kick. But it's like, I could never figure out how to do it consistently. It didn't seem like you could string the moves together in a way. It just seemed like you mash Y, and then you can do one of them. And that's the most I could do consistently, and sometimes it wouldn't work anyway.
No, I had a problem where, like, sometimes, like, using, like, the hand beam attack, where sometimes it just wouldn't work. Like, I would press the buttons, and it just wouldn't
I've had the problem of sometimes those things, while I was running around, there would be an enemy that... I have this, I think there's a lot of clips of this in my review that I posted, but sometimes I'd be running by and like just running around trying to do like a boost air jump or something, but it's like mapped in such a way that if you do a specific button combo, Sonic will just start attacking something if there's a homing attack reticle.
I've had that happen to me.
So I'd be running around, and like there was one time I was running around and Sonic immediately went into his thing where he like flies in the air and shoots X's out of his hands like he's fucking Gaius and Belsar or whatever the fuck. Like, he's throwing X's at enemies, and it like, I was like, oh fuck, I don't want to be doing this right now, but I guess I am. And it's like, the way that the combos are like mapped, and the fact that they don't have a lot of, it doesn't feel like they have a lot of synergy other than to build up your Phantom Rush. It's kind of like, I don't know.
King, that same thing happened to me on the fucking Tower Island. Yeah. And I did a homing attack, and then Sonic did the thing. Because like when he does the thing with the where he shoots the X's out of his hands, he kind of goes like in an arc. So I just went all the way around the enemy, and I fell all the way down.
Yeah. That happened to me as well.
I think that happened to all three of us. There was one time where I just wanted to boost over to this runnable wall. I just wanted to boost over there, but because it was, I pressed R, and I guess that was close in proximity to when I pressed the other button, Sonic does the X attack, and I see him, he's veering up, and I'm like, no.
It's like...
Get down, Yuki, like, get down.
It felt to me like, when I was first playing, I'm like, okay, finally... we have mapped everything to its own button, right? The light speed's on the fucking left stick. Your homing attack is bound to some other button. Stuff like that. But then I go in and I'm like, is this like a Sonic curse that no matter what you do, it's like there will always be several actions mapped to these weird button combos that you're gonna accidentally pull out your fucking super move while you're trying to just homing attack somebody, and you fall off because it can't account for the fact that you're about to pull off a super move on something that has 1 HP because it's meant to be homing attack. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I just don't. It feels like a curse. Like this just will never be broken. This button mapping shit.
I will say that did happen to me, but it was usually in like the lower parts of an open zone where I was trying to like get to a platform that had like those basic enemies on it. I don't remember what they're called. They look like little gremlins. And I was, yeah, that's when I would do like the flurry kick or whatever the fuck it's called. I did not have that problem with the tower zone. And I do think, I do want to mention that those tower sections do have shortcuts on them. Like when you get high enough on them, it'll lower one of those little rope pulley things so you can get back up.
Like fucking Toy Story 2 treetop level.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of like that, now that you mention it.
Like Toy Story 2 on PlayStation.
we should play that game
I
on the
had
show.
more fun with one than the other, but yeah, it is a lot like that.
Now, Island 3 seems to be the low light for people. That's Frank was saying as much. And I think I still liked it.
If we don't count Island 4 as a real island, then yeah, I would agree.
I mean, I'd still take Island 3, even if 4 was, but... I mean, I would take 4. I just think 3 was awful.
You would take 4?
Yeah,
that was like the most incredulous sounding king I've ever heard.
well, because
I guess it is pretty short.
Like 1 is short and 2...
Yeah, Jay, you were not here when Ryan had the gall to say that Final Fantasy 13 or 15 was unfinished.
Oh.
Remember that.
That's where the famous "What do you mean?"
What do you mean?
quote came from. That's the most incredulous I've ever heard King.
But no, it's like...
I don't even remember
I
this,
thought
to
that's
be
what
honest.
was
You probably were saying something. It can't have just been you were saying it was unfinished. There's probably more to that.
I remember it was like Spyro A Hero's Tale. It was like Kingdom Hearts 3 is unfinished.
Oh.
And you're like, what do you mean?
That was
I
the
don't know.
time where I compared Birth by Sleep to a Vietnam War documentary.
Yeah. See, now that seems a little more justified to me.
You asked me if I liked Dream Drop Distance or Birth by Sleep better, and I'm like, oh, Dream Drop Distance. You're just like, really? You're not happy about it.
But you know,
I don't know.
with Island 4, it's like I don't think it's good. I think it's shitty because like with Island 4, there's literally nothing but the towers. There's nothing.
Yes.
Right. So I understand.
So you admit the game is bad. Great. End podcast.
I understand, but like the point of this little area that you're in is that you go up these 4 towers, or you know these 6 towers. That's fine. The point of like all the other islands is that you explore them to the fullest of your ability. And hand to God, I think a lot of these islands are a lot of fun to explore. But the problem with Chaos Island is that like as you are exploring, for one, with the first 2 islands, they kind of teach you that like, oh hey, if you see like this little treasure chest icon and you do like a side loop around it, you'll get like a vault key or some rings or memory tokens or whatever. But if you do it on Chaos Island, you get a dash pad or a spring that'll put you in a 2D section, or you're trying to run forward and then you hit a dash pad that kind of popped in out of nowhere and suddenly you're in a 2D section and you can't get out of it because you're locked in 2 dimensions. Like, I just think like everything that Chaos Island was trying to do is just like, it was inconsistent with what the rest of the game was telling you what you could do, you know? It's like you want to explore and you want to do like cool things, but like, even like what Jeb was saying, like when he was doing a thing and like he was trying to do like a cool power boost, but then he got stuck in a 2D section. It's bad. You know, like there wasn't anything like that in the 4th island because it's just like, okay, well, this is the point. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what the game wants me to do, so I'm gonna do it. Chaos Island is just a mess.
I guess.
I agreed with everything until you started talking about the 4th island.
I don't get me wrong. The fact that they even consider it an island, it's underwhelming. I'm not saying it's good. It's one of the low points. But like, I think that since there is a point to what you are doing, like there's like, you have an objective, you know? Climb the 4 towers. Okay. Or, you know, I can do that.
6 towers.
With this, it's just like, oh, hey, yeah, explore Chaos Island. Oh, you got stuck in a 2D section. Get fucked, asshole. It sucks.
But I think that they're just like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like 3 and 4 have the same gameplay problem of I'm doing Mario Maker segments all day.
Well, yeah.
But then in 4, they put an extra layer on top to say, by the way, we said that you can explore 5 massive Starfall islands.
That is a quote on their website. That is, it's still up.
Technically it is
JebTube. Oh, yeah.
And that would be an example of the bridge to Terabithia effect. Where they're judging the game based on the marketing and not its content.
But even the content.
Okay, come on now.
Well, the content is fucking Mario Maker. I'm doing Mario. I think
it's a little more than just the marketing in this case.
Yeah, and it's like this is okay. Well, we're skipping. I don't want to. I feel like this is supposed to be like the Midna's Lament moment. You go up the tower and it's playing sad-ish music. It's really intense, but instead I'm like doing 2D section. There'll be 2D sections in this game where Sonic's on platforms that are literally as thin as like I would hope myself. And so it takes me out of the immersion, like, because I'm not even like on a 2D platform. I'm on literally, if 2D's axis could be a real thing that I could walk on, like I'm on Wipeout or something. It's so on these towers for what's supposed to be a great moment. So I can't in any way say that what it's trying to do, I think it fails at that just as much as Chaos Island, to be honest. I don't even remember, is it Rhea Island?
Yes. Yeah. I want to say all of the islands are named after some Greek thing, including Chaos Island, apparently.
Chaos.
Because Kronos is the father of the Kronos is the father of all the Olympians, or at least several of them. Chaos, I think, was one of the primordials, along with Uranus, Uranos, or however it's pronounced. I don't speak Greek.
I'm glad you think that way about my anus, but
well, maybe some other time. But I'm hearing you guys talk about this fourth island, and like I feel like pretty much all of your
really
complaints...
reminds me of Bridge to Terabithia. It can't be unsaid.
No, that's not where I was gonna go. I feel like pretty much all of the complaints you guys have made are sane and reasonable, and I agree with them to a certain extent. The fourth island, it feels like we played a completely different game. Like I hear you on the Mario Maker thing, because it's like generic assets that they're arranging, like prefabs that they've already built, so they don't have to like fully 3D model things, which none of you guys have done. I've done it. It takes forever, and it sucks when you have to white box. Even white boxing a 3D environment is a pain. So I cannot blame them for using prefabs. But I liked climbing the towers. I thought that section was fun. I enjoyed it. And I'm going to give it the edge over Island 3 because, like Jeb said, and Ryan, when you're playing Island 3, it's just like you have a 3D environment and then you'll be like on ground level and suddenly you're in a 2D section for no reason. There were 2D sections in Islands 1 and 2, and usually how it would work is you'd take a spring upwards to one of the higher areas and then it would go to 2D, and that makes a lot more sense. But when you're like on ground level just running around, oops, now I'm suddenly locked to a 2D plane, that feels like it takes away the player's agency and control.
I mean, for what it's worth too, I also feel like 2D in this game, especially in the open zones, to me it kind of displays like a lack of confidence, where it's like you don't trust the player enough to like explore this 3D area, so you have to like hold their hand and shove them in a 2D space where it's much more safe and easier to explore. You know?
And it was weird that I did that in the third island.
Yeah.
If you wanted to give the player a safety blanket for like the sections and make sure that they don't go off the rails, it seems like something you do earlier in the game to get them used to things.
I'm glad they didn't, because that would have left a horrible first impression.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me, because in the first islands, like, I can't even... Okay, so with the other games, when there's 2D sections, I can usually say 2D is easier to develop than 3D in terms of variables of what can go wrong, I would imagine. Which is why 3D Sonic is the fucking, talking point of the century. But on Chronos and Ares, you're doing like these platforming challenges using these pre-made assets anyway, many of which are also automated and use dash pads and springs up the ass. But then here on Chaos, they just randomly are like, we'll give you those pre-made assets and we'll take away your range of movement. Like, oh, cool. Like, is that even easier? They're just shit floating over the land, which the land itself would probably cause the issues, I would imagine, of control. But like, we're already hopping on balloons and stuff anyway on the other islands. But on Chaos, like, I don't know, is there just somebody who's like, we need to have 2D sections or else it's not a Sonic game in the traditional sense over there? I don't understand it, especially for being in the middle of the game like that.
I just think the game would have been better without it at all. They didn't need it.
Yeah.
Like, if you have like an open world game, you don't need 2D. Plain and simple.
I don't think they need 2D in any of these fucking 3D games except Generations for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But especially this, I really thought, I laughed when I saw in pre-release that 2D was a thing in the game at all, for one thing, for Cyberspace. But then in the open world, the open zone.
Open zone!
Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. It was very bizarre. But yeah.
So, let's talk about those bosses.
This is where I feel like I'm on a different planet, because, like, I hear a lot of people talk shit about them, but I'm like the shark one.
A lot of people?
Yeah! Everyone's listening.
Oh, you're talking about the regular bosses. Okay, I thought you were talking about the
not
Titans.
the supersonic stuff. I'm talking about like the Guardians. Yeah, more Breath of the Wild shit right there. But anyways, like, I hear people talk about the shark one and how it's boring, and I'm like, yeah, I see it, but like, you got Sonic grabbing the tail of like this giant shark robot thing, and like, he's holding on for dear life. There's a spectacle there, and I think it's fun. And I saw people go combo mad where they took him out in like one cycle, and I thought that was really cool. I often found myself going after these guys. Like, okay, so open zone, I do enjoy it a lot. Exo was saying that he enjoyed like the little platforming things, but what I would do is that like, I would look for all of like the little challenges that unlocked more parts of the map. And then I would also go after the boss fights. Like, those like were the two things I would always do first. And I mean, don't get me wrong, some of these suck. Fucking Strider is like one of the first ones that you fight on the Ares Island.
I was going to mention that one.
Strider is my mortal enemy.
It is an abomination.
I fucking hate Strider.
It is an abomination. But like, I would watch some of our friends play, and I'd watch them go up against the tank enemy, and I'm like, wow, that looks awful. But yet when I played it, I'm like, actually, no, I'm enjoying myself for some reason.
I kind of like that one.
Yeah, I like the shark one too. And like, I like all the fights in the last island I thought were really fun. And like, some of these are kind of like the fortress.
Do you like Caterpillar? I must ask.
Yeah, like, it's not great,
Okay.
but like, he has like a big thing on his butt. They have to like smack. It was fun.
That's fine.
I avoid caterpillars specifically at all costs. I might tango with Tower, but I don't cream with Caterpillar.
It's not like the best.
Are you
fight
trying to
in
use
the
Tower to
game.
get at old Ironsides?
I
but
understood
like,
that reference.
So did I.
I thought most of
We
these.
play some based games, Jay.
I thought most of these were a lot of fun, and this is where like a lot of the combat really stood out for me. Like, this is where you're able to like string, like, you're able to like flex those flashy combos and everything. You're allowed to go a little bonkers with these guys, because like a lot of the other enemies that you find, they they don't really do anything. They're kind of weak.
Yeah.
You know, so this is like your way of like, you know, testing out your new skills that you unlock and, you know, seeing what each one really does. And it was fun.
I mean, yeah, that is true once I get past the, like, shite platforming challenges for half of them.
Can I have this, Jeb?
No, you can. But I'm just, I don't know, for Caterpillar and...
Is this not a discussion on a podcast?
No! It's a circle jerk.
For Caterpillar in particular, I was like, oh my god, well, this guy... I think they also play some bitchin' music when you fight Caterpillar, if I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I'm like, oh, look at this big old dude. And then I'm back on rails again, and I have to jump over shit, and I have to homing attack stuff. But if you jump, you get disaligned with the rails.
Oh, another one that people seem to hate. It's Squid.
Yes.
I like him.
Do not. Oh my.
I like Squid. I think he's cool. Like there was this part where like I was just like doing my own thing on Chaos Island, which I also do want to say I think it is a little lame that some of these fights do repeat. But like I was on Chaos Island, and this guy was just like doing his own thing. And I accidentally did like that rail boost thing where it sends you flying, and it sent me flying right on the path of the dragon. And I'm like, oh shit, okay, I guess I'm doing this now, you know? And it was, I don't know, I thought it was cool. I like the scale. I like the whole idea of like you're running on this giant thing.
Just so you know, Ryan, if you ever want to feel in my shoes when people talk about KH3, that's how I feel. Exactly how you feel right now. That is how I feel.
This is my Kingdom Hearts 3
If you ever
the King
wanted
K.
to know, that is how I feel.
You don't see King be like, oh, just let me have this, guys. No, you don't see any of that.
But
I don't take back what I said about Kingdom Hearts 3, but, you know,
Let me have the
King
worst
on the bright
conclusion
side,
to
you
any
get to be
franchise
mine,
in
too.
history. Except for Game of Thrones. And Star Wars.
I'm just saying, like it doesn't, like, am I asking for a lot? No, I just think, like, I like the scale, I like the set piece, I like the spectacle of it all. And, you know, again, like with the combat, it feels flashy and fun, so a lot of these I don't really mind. Also with Squid, I didn't think it was that bad if you use, like, because, like, my train of thought was like, oh, I have to run on this guy, let me get my boost, so, like, I would do, like, the little infinity logo with the side loop, get infinite boost, and then I was good, you know? Because, like, I was seeing some people do this, and they're like, yeah, if you do, like, an infinite symbol, or a Mobius strip symbol on the, like, with the side loop, you get infinite boost.
How is anybody supposed to know that?
It's a secret.
Okay.
Well, there shouldn't have been a fucking stamina wheel to begin with.
Yeah, it's a band-aid.
Yeah.
Because the boost isn't even, like, function the way that it used to, in the sense that, like, it doesn't really make sense to me anymore that it's a resource when, like, it's not as powerful to, like, use against enemies and shit. So, like, what is really the point of having it be, like, a stamina thing? Especially when the bosses, like Squid, feel like they break halfway through if you boost the entire time. And it's, like, weird as fuck. Like, it doesn't even feel like it's built to have a stamina wheel.
Yeah.
I think the reason they did it is precisely for encounters like Squid or Strider, where your ability to boost is like adds a tension element. It doesn't work for Squid because it's just kind of like if you run out partway through, you're just fucked and you kind of have to wait for it to regenerate. But in the context of the open world, I didn't find myself boosting in a straight line long enough for it to run out in the first place, because I was always looking for more memory token stuff to do. So it wasn't a problem.
I always had infinite boost anyway.
Well, apparently
Well, I
that's
guess
the thing.
that's what I'm saying, is that, like, it feels kind of pointless to me because of that.
Yeah,
Which
I agree with that.
If I recall correctly, getting infinite boost puts you at max speed, correct? Like,
No.
I did not really feel much of a fucking difference at all upgrading my speed.
Well, I think the max boost is max speed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Are we talking
I'm pretty
power
sure that's
boost?
been
Oh wait, are you
documented.
talking about the max boost or the infinite boost?
the like whenever you get 400 ring.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Oh yeah,
then it might
not
be.
the
I don't know.
infinite boost. Yeah, which you get, and you can get. You know how you can get that? by spinning around in a circle. Which also means that the ring count doesn't really have much of a meaning to be upgraded either.
Yeah, because I can see they wanted it for supersonic fights.
I thought the same thing until I fought Giganto with the default ring count. I only had like 120, and he killed me like 6 times. So that's why I started upgrading, so that I could steamroll the Titans. And you have more rings, you have more time to fight the boss.
But you can still spin around in those fights too.
What you could have done, because this is what I did, because like I had a similar issue where going up against is it Giganto?
Yeah.
Yes.
The first Titan. I had the same issue where like I would go in the fight, I'm supersonic, and then I have like 100 rings, and then I die. But then I'm like, oh wait, when I respawn, let me just like max out my ring counter real quick, and then you start the fight with 400 rings, so you have plenty of time to do the fight.
Yes, but I was
sure
you
get
could
more
just
rings in the fight too.
Well, no, you don't. You just like when you die, you get brought back to like the little climbing part. You just do the side loop over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and you get rings, infinite rings. Then you max out your health and you max out your rings, and then you get 400 rings for the fight.
It never occurred to me to do that.
Wait, what?
I don't know, like stuff like that makes me feel like this game is. I don't know how this was designed this way. I don't know.
Specifically, the level up process where you have to do it individually.
Yes.
That was
Whereas the attack and defense upgrades happen automatically. Is like, how do these things both exist at the same time? It's very amusing to me.
I sat there for 25 minutes with Elder Coco at 1 a.m. And when I was done, I said, shit. And I went to bed. It's
That's
fucking
the last
terrible.
thing you did before you went to bed is spam upgrades.
Yes, actually, that's what happened.
They couldn't be asked to put in something that's been in every Final Fantasy game for the past 30 years.
I mean, even with something like the Souls games, where it's just like you have X amount of experience currency, and you can like distribute like however many points you want in any given stat, It's like, oh, I want to put this much in my dexterity. I want to put this much in my attack or this much in my stamina. They could have done something like that.
It's
but
just,
they didn't.
I play the game and it feels, I don't want to be mean, but it feels like haphazardly crafted. Like
Probably because it was not well thought out.
Strider, right? And
yes.
Okay, so there was an interview, right, where they said most games get play tested for alpha and beta, but this game, we have play tests every 3 months. And I'm very curious how the legs of Strider are in front of the camera where I can't see and then I die. Because
yeah, that happened to me a lot, because those fucking legs, there's 4 of them, and if you're going pretty fast, they like consistently block pretty, like,
yeah.
And those balls will rail switch with you almost instantly on the second phase, and it's like, these two things don't really work very well together, do they?
And you might think, oh, just jump over the balls, right? If you
But
jump
you
over
aren't
the balls,
locked,
make
2D
sure you're not.
Field you're on. The problem with trying to dodge the balls by jumping, and I want to say this is actually different for Caterpillar for some reason, where it's like, what you expect to happen is a spline is like a 3D line. It's like a way of referring to like a line in 3D modeling. And I imagine how they did the 2D lock is they built like a spline or like a 3D ring and attached it to, basically created that as like, here's the 2D plane, here's the axis that Sonic moves around and it loops. And when you jump on the rails in the Strider boss, you unlock yourself from the 2D plane that you're on, and jump could potentially like jump off of the rails and down, which is useful if you want to heal back up after the unavoidable stupid balls make you lose all your rings and potentially die. But it's not so useful if you're trying to play the boss as intended.
Which, by the way, is even more annoying because you don't get damage iframes when you get hit, which becomes more noticeable on this boss. because I have had moments where I get hit by a ball and just a second later immediately get hit by the next one and die, which is not very fun.
Now, King, I've told you this before. It's an intentional callback to Sonic 1 on the Sega Genesis thanks to the infinite spike glitch.
Well, sometimes you do get knocked back pretty fucking far, so I'm like, maybe it is.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I just remembered exactly what my problem with Caterpillar is. No, it's not the rail shit, because the rails actually do work different, because they lock you, they force you into this whirlpool of railage, and I get hit on the rails, which if you get hit on the rails, you can't collect the rings because they fall down below. So if I get hit enough on the rails, I find it really awkward to control when I'm on the rails anyway, you can just die just right there, and there's like nothing you can do about it. And at that point, it feels, I guess that's where the ring upgrade comes in, but that's really, the ring upgrade should not be contingent upon me having my control stripped away from me to be in a 2D rail section, you know? Like, every one of these bosses to me feels like it has some cute little thing, some cute little surprise, right? Like a dog shitting on my front lawn. And it's like, I don't understand any of these bosses.
I don't like when a lot of those surprises take like 2 minutes to resolve, which is the reason that Shark annoys me, is because the first time I did Shark, I was like, oh, this is really cool and badass. I was right there with you, Ryan. And then I fought another one, and then I fought another one, and I was like, okay, this is like...
Yeah.
I really, really do not want to sit through shit that takes this long, because when you die, you have to start again.
Squid.
Yes. And a lot of it is just you are in a cutscene and you hold left or right, basic QTE shit for a while, and it's like, oh god, and I just started avoiding a lot of these fucking bosses.
And again, like that is something I do genuinely have a problem with. It's like, it's how... Okay, so it's how they get reused. That, I think, is pretty underwhelming. The biggest flick in the dick is the Starfall event.
Yes.
And how they all get brought back.
Fun story. The first time I beat Strider, that happened immediately afterwards.
Yes! Same! Oh my god! And then he came back and you had to fight him again!
Yeah, that happened to me too. Is that just meant to happen?
I don't know.
I think it's probably triggered to happen at a certain point in Ares Island.
It's a defective
because
model.
I also ran into
it can only be activated by the one who triggered
But after that point, it's completely random. It plays this annoying fucking casino noise, and it blocks a good portion of the front of your screen. And I don't know how to get rid of it other than to, like, I think if you die, it might go away. I'm not really sure on that.
I don't think so, no.
It's really fucking annoying, and I have clips in my video of me fighting Strider with that thing in the front of my screen,
and
as
Squid.
if my vision wasn't obscured enough already for the... like...
Why
did
literally
they put that
destroys Squid. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah, because you already have trouble with the camera angles trying to figure out where those balls are coming from. Another one of my problems with Squid. And when the casino thing is blocking your screen, it's even harder to see where you're supposed to quick step.
And because Squid and Fortress are so long, you have to just be there on... You can't get off of this train. So you're on, and okay, well, you got hit. Oh no, I hope this section ends really soon so I can spin around in a circle like an idiot and get rings, or, you know, or at least take out this guy in like one fell swoop, hopefully, and then recoup my losses. But sometimes no, because they want to make it feel like an event, so they have you running there for about 2 minutes, and it's like
I like Sumo.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll say that.
I do too.
I think Sumo's pretty neat. He's a neat boss.
I also like the
Sumo's
Fortress boss. Just for the scale.
He's okay.
It is.
It didn't really bother me one way or the other. I kind of avoided him.
Yeah.
I tried to make an effort
But I
to
like
fight
Sumo.
each boss once, and then when I did that, I'm like, okay.
You got a trophy for it.
Yeah. I swipe left on every boss I see. Fuck these guys. I don't like them.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, even when they came in, like I would always like run back to the ones that I like and do it again. And like that's like, I honest to God wish they had like a boss, like an optional boss rush mode, where it's like maybe like oh, you beat the game, you got like the achievement that says like you fought all the enemy types. It's like, well, why not have like a thing where it's like, see how many of these guys you can go through like on a single life, like without dying. I think that would be really cool because I think a lot of these are really fun. Yeah,
I'd like to see how many guys I could go through in a single life as well.
Ryan, I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at, like, the moment you said, I wish there was a boss rush, I just imagined what King K's thoughts must be. And then I looked at that Machoke avatar with, like, its like, yelling expression.
No, don't worry. The thought of me doing a boss rush, I certainly made that face in my head.
Like, when I say a boss rush mode, I mean like what's Super Smash Bros. Brawl has. Like after you beat the Subspace Emissary, you can like go to like the arena tab and like, oh yeah, you can go through all the bosses if you want, like optional content. Not force that shit.
Well, I mean, I would be all for having a boss rush. What I'm thinking about is I would never touch that with a 10-foot pole, is what I'm saying. The idea of doing that gives me psychic damage. But it would be cool if it was in the game, because I'm all for optional content. I know that's like...
So I just would never touch it. Because again, these were fun.
Other than like fixes to, shit like the stupid casino reel blocking the camera, I think that's like the most requested. If there was like a mode or a feature, a lot of people are like, add a boss rush for...
Well, if Metroid Dread's anything to go by, maybe they will add one.
Well, I mean, it's
later for some reason.
Yeah. Well, especially because you can't replay the Supersonic bosses. Everyone's like, please.
Which is a great segue.
Yeah. Well, I want to say before we get to Supersonic bosses that there's another thing about the open zone, because we've discussed, the Mario Maker and the Among Us and all that shit, but there's something else about the open zone that I think that the controls are precise and that's cool, but then the other thing that really kills the open zone for me is how jank this game can feel. How Sonic... Okay, so you have the combat, you have the Psy-Loop. It's like the Knight's Paraloop. Oh.
Yep.
I want a Psy-Loop around Tower over here. Oh, but what's this? There's these ancient markings on the ground that are like a pebble in terms of size, and Sonic jittered on that while I was doing a Psy-Loop, and it canceled my Psy-Loop. Oh, that's cool. And I just can't do it because Tower's not going to move away from here. So, there's that. There's the fact that I could trip on a rock and Sonic will start dabbing in the sky for a bit until I tell him to stop. There was one time where I was riding a zip wire on the Island 5 and it just dropped me into the ocean. But then I did it again and then it didn't drop me into the ocean that time. This game is, I don't want to say glitchy. Is that the right term? It feels really like it does not work sometimes. And I don't know, the core gameplay loop, it's kind of weird that the most fun I can have is jumping off rails in this open world sometimes, because otherwise it's all accidental, I feel. And it's
I don't know. I mean, I get that, and maybe it's just also kind of like what I value with these kind of games. Like with this one in particular, like I find myself playing more and more open world sandboxy kind of games, and I find that like with something like Breath of the Wild, I think a lot of like the appeal is, I mean, I know EXO was saying otherwise, but like I do like how slow it is. I do like it's a slow burn, and like you're always discovering something interesting. Halo Infinite's a lot of fun because you got like the grapple shot, and you have like a huge sandbox of weapons you can play around with and experiment with. And with this one in particular, with Frontiers, it's like I get a lot of fun out of just like tearing through these massive environments. And like one of the things that Jay did in his video was that like you get like the max boost, you do the side loop, and then you just like the camera pans out to show you how much land you're running through. Like it's not deep, it's pretty shallow, but again, like there's a thrill to it, and like there's I think that's worth something, you know? Like, I found enjoyment in doing that. At least I could still boost, Jeb.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's fun.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, even... I'm trying to think, what is the most fun thing I can... Like, I said jumping off rails, but is there any, like... Because the challenges are all, like, really basic. I definitely don't like the mini-bosses. The combat, fighting enemies is, like, alright, I guess. No, I guess not really anything, but then if I don't like the cyberspace, then it's like the literal core gameplay loop is just I'm bored out of my mind. Like,
okay. Well, you were saying that, like, what's the most fun thing about this game? Would you say that could potentially go to the supersonic fights?
I would.
Okay. Tell us about it.
Well, are we
actually,
tell us how you really
does
feel.
anyone have more on the open zone?
Exo, you're about to say something?
I was going to ask if Jay could tell us about the bosses, because I know he has an opinion or two on them.
You see, well, the thing about that is that,
You're going to have to give me a rain check? Call me?
I mean, the thing about the boss fights is that I wasn't a fan. There you go. That's my analysis. I mean, I can't say much that hasn't already been said, if only because of the fact it's like, you know, yeah, I thought Squid was a pain in the fucking ass over and over again. Although, this, I guess, is the part where I could mention the fact that, according to the comments section, my stats were not high enough to have a valid opinion of the endgame of this game. So, actually, I guess I do have something to say. So, I'm just saying that, in my video, I just made the case that a lot of the times combat gets repetitive.
Yes.
And that, like, nothing I said had anything to do with it that would correlate with my stats being low. When your stats are high, then it's just more like, then you just kind of blow enemies away, and then therefore there's not really any opportunity to, like, use combos.
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
So, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I had a moment like that when I got to the final island. I fought a handful of bosses, and my strength stat was only at, like, 41 or something. Because I honestly kept forgetting that you can upgrade your strength. I was just kind of, like, playing through the game.
I forgot you could too, so I was trapped at level 19.
And, like, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, these guys are, like, putting up a bit of a fight. Like, you know, they have big health bars, and they're hitting me like trucks. Like I was kind of surprised, but then I found the Elder Cocoa that was like, hey, I can upgrade your shit. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. And then I went from 44 to, like, 99, and I'm like, oh. And then I fought one of the... I fought the Platinum Tower. And I ran up it, and then the little wheel that he has knocked me down. But I was allowed to press the A button, which let me counter him. So Sonic homing attacked the top of the tower boss and wiped out his health bar in one attack. I was like, oh, I could just one-shot these guys now. And then
I actually found the combat, like, anything to the contrary of what people said, I found the combat more fun when I had less power.
No, I agree with you.
Because then there's more room to play with it.
Yeah, and there's an actual challenge, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I also agree. Or, sorry. I agree, Emma. That this game...
That's right, Jay.
That's right, Jay. This game has a balancing problem. Big time.
Yes.
Travis posted a tweet on his twitter.com about how he just went to the big fishing hole, which we still haven't talked about, for like 20 minutes to farm some, I think, fruits. I mean, Jay, I want to say you did the same thing where you farmed a bunch of vault keys so you didn't have to play the cyberspace levels.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous how many items you can get just from fishing like a few times. Just from catching a few damn fish.
And you really need, like, just 2 of those casino slot machines to get, like, a fuck ton of purple coins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's my guess about what happened. I was not there, but as someone who took 3 years of game design school, I can only speculate. System design is one of the hardest fields of design to do, at least for me. There are people who were born to do system design, who just immediately can grasp board game rules after reading it once. And I'll be like, wait, what am I supposed to be doing in this board game? And these people can balance...
I'm very bad at board games.
These people can balance a spreadsheet and balance a game economy and take playtest data and fix things like it's nobody's business. I cannot. I suck at system design. It is why it was not one of my specialties. And my guess is they either A, did not have a dedicated system designer to go through and say like, hey, we need to structure the upgrades this way so that the player will be at this level of strength so that they will have such and such experience but such and such boss at this time, but still make the upgrades worth enough that they actually feel like they do anything and can be satisfying to come back to a boss when you're stronger and can beat it later. And then meanwhile, you have the whole thing with the stupid Elder Coco taking 1,000,000 years to let you upgrade your ring and speed stats. And it's like, when you can have your stats go up to level 99, the change is so incremental that you're not going to notice it. It's like the new God of War that just came out, in many ways, is very similar to the 2018 one. Perhaps too similar. We'll talk about it in the end of year podcast. But it's like, each of your weapons go up to level 5. It starts at level 1, and then as you level them up, you get a pretty substantial strength boost, and you get to unlock a bunch of new combos. Whereas in this game, your strength goes up to 99, and it doesn't take that much time to completely break the economy in your favor and cram it all the way up to 99. The balance is fucked. And my guess is, A, they didn't have a system designer, or B, they were waiting until they finished literally everything else, and it was balancing the economy was such a low priority that they just didn't have time to get around to it.
Well, you know what I honestly think could have helped, and I'm honestly surprised that they didn't do more of this, especially considering Sonic Forces was, and not even just Sonic Forces, Colors Ultimate, because like in Colors Ultimate, you know, you can get like different aura boosts and different gloves and shoes, like different cosmetic things for Sonic to run around in. I don't know why they didn't have like more gear, more like outfits or whatever, like in the game, like that, because like it wouldn't have fixed the problem, but it would have at least been something else you could spend your coins on. So it's like, oh yeah, you know, I could spend all these coins on these strength things, or I could get like these really cool looking shoes that'll make Sonic look like a badass, you know?
Yeah, and I thought that was when they showed the purple coins first in the IGN showcase. I thought, oh, the purple coins from Mario Odyssey. We're going to be able to buy some cool looking gear. I'm going to get my rider's shoes. It's going to be great. And no, you don't. And I feel like that's the biggest missed opportunity ever. Because like, I thought this was surely the game that they would do that. Which I guess technically Forces was, but not for Sonic himself. But, you know, so like, I don't know. I think about big fishing sometimes, and it kind of feels to me like they weren't confident in, like, or maybe not that they weren't confident. I don't know. It's like you get the feeling that they were like, okay, you can just spam big fishing. You do have to get the coins to get here in the first place, but lucky for you, we're going to give you these Starfall events, and you might be able to get like fucking 500 coins. So you can just fish, and the fishing that has no challenge to it either. So you fish, and you get the vault keys, and you get, you know, the memory tokens, and that's like, and then you could just be basically good right there. And like, I don't know, there's freedom. There's like the idea of you can technically get these things however you want. You could do it by fishing, or you could do it by playing Cyberspace, or doing, you know, whatever.
Finding some of the overworld.
But the fact that the fishing is clearly the easiest alternative, and like no question, it just doesn't really feel like an alternative method. It feels like a deposit. Like, do you feel like playing the game anymore? No? Okay, go to the big fishing hole and deposit your coins into him, and he will reward you, because Big is eternal. And like,
wishes are eternal.
I don't know. I thought it was cute to pick up the fish. Like, I think it's kind of fun that they modeled all this random shit that you can get, including like ancient tablets or whatever.
Hammerheads.
Yeah.
Blue spotted octopi.
Like, there's like some charm in there, but it's like, it's just another facet of a game that I think is, and also even, oh my God, even in the shop, the whole like, you have to upgrade one by one with the Elder Cocoa thing. That's here, but not nearly as bad because it's not slow.
Yeah.
But it's still here where like, you can't just say, I want to buy like 50 fruits or whatever. You have to. And then when you do that, when you
like you're playing fucking what's it called from Mario Party? Fucking
yeah.
Domination or whatever it's called.
You have to spam a button, and when you do that, you get to hear the most wondrous sound I've ever heard.
It feels like the menu was designed for a completely differently balanced system than what is actually in the game. Because if you have an economy where the items are more expensive, like say in the final game, the fruits, the seeds or whatever the fuck they're called, the defense and attack seeds, are like 2 of the froggy coins or whatever they're called. If you bump that up to like 20, then you may not be buying 100 of them at a time. And then the sound design wouldn't be nearly as bad. Like, if it took longer, if it was more like, remember when we all went to Dave & Buster's? I guess Jay wasn't there. He was sick. We all went to Dave & Buster's.
Yeah.
And you can rack up the equivalent of tickets to buy stuff in the gift shop. And the economy in the ticket gift shop is specifically designed so that you have to play the games for like a ridiculous amount of time to be able to afford anything good. To the point it's easier to just go buy them with real money. If they had balanced it more like that menu would work fine, because you're not supposed to be buying 100 things at once. You're only supposed to have enough money at a time to be able to buy 1 or 2 things. But that's not how the economy is actually balanced, so you end up in a situation where you have an Earthbound menu to buy things with, where you have to do it one at a time.
Yeah, that's true. And like, also, I think it's the biggest meme ever, where Big is like, how much you borrow a ride? Like, every time. And
would you like to try?
And the music, it's this surreal environment.
Fun fact, guys, Big the Cat is voiced by fucking Gohan.
Yeah. Did you
yeah, that's bizarre.
He's also the voice of in this game, the male voice.
You want to know what's funny is the Studiopolis cast did the English dub for, what the fuck is it called? Bungo Stray Dogs, which is really cool anime. Go check it out. But Amy's voice actress plays like this geisha who has like a golden demon as her supernatural ability, and she's really good in that role, and that's what she sounds like when she's playing.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was her until I looked it up. That was kind of weird. As I mean, I much prefer that role for her though, because we'll get to that later. But
I wonder why the fuck they don't just get Jeremy Lay to play Amy, like Makoto from Persona 5. That's like a perfect Amy voice.
That would work really well, actually. Now that you mentioned that, I never thought about that, but.
And I'm pretty sure she's a Studiopolis actor, or maybe she just works for Crunchyroll or Funimation. I don't know. But she was in Bungo Stray Dogs, and that was a Studiopolis. She played like forget her name, but she was like the little girl who was a murderer. Anyway,
never seen it.
It's good. Your sister loves it.
Oh, cool.
I'm sorry, I kind of took us off the train to rant about the fucking the polish.
No, I mean, it was good to talk about the fishing. That's important.
We did get to the fishing because of that. Yeah, but like,
are you fishing for compliments, Jeb? Is that what you're doing?
No, but I'm fishing for Supersonic.
Hell yeah!
What do we all think about Supersonic?
You know, that was pretty cool. I had smiles on my faces during these supersonic fights.
Holy shit!
That's my analysis.
I just blacked out. I laughed so hard.
You what?
That hasn't happened, Jay.
Like-
The last time that happened is the part where Mr. X falls off the ledge into the vat of lava in Resident Evil 2.
Wait. I think I know what you're saying.
It's in Leon B's ending.
You had a hearty laugh at that, huh?
I laughed so hard that I blacked out and saw stars.
Oh my!
Stars!
Stars. Wow.
But I was like, man, do I really like the idea behind having some hype supersonic boss fights, but hot darn, those were janky as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that third one.
Yeah.
No, better yet, especially that fourth one.
Yeah.
What was the fourth one, Jinky?
I mean, I only say that because of the fact that there's just like diamonds all over the screen, like flying every which way.
And you also don't know why. Okay, this is another thing that Jay's comment section was doing, where Jay's like, you physically cannot damage the boss until you figure out that you're supposed to I think it's like you either have to hit one of the diamonds and then a cutscene will trigger, or it'll just happen. I don't even remember.
Something like that.
But like,
it's like you have to hit one of the smaller ones or something.
But you don't know that.
Clear.
You don't know that, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Well, it's a weirdly designed boss, that last one, Supreme, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's weirdly designed because you can very easily slip through the diamond turrets that it has and start wailing away at the head. And if you've been getting a decent amount of strength and defense things, which I had gotten, I was maybe at like 41 power, I think in my footage it said, or something like that. Somewhere around there. You will, like, if you use any special attack during this thing, even on hard mode, it will melt him. Like, I don't know why, it just will. His health bar will drop crazy quick. And so you get to a point in the fight where that health bar stops draining.
Yeah.
And this happens in a lot of games where, like, they want something to happen before you can hit him again. And I was like, okay, I guess I just gotta wait for him to, like, do a cutscene. And I was there for, like, several minutes, and I'm like, what does the game want me to do? Because he will attack you, you will parry it, and then the game will be like, okay, you parried, and then he'll say, no, actually, I'm gonna hit you again, and then a cutscene will play where I laser blast you across the screen, and then I'm gonna throw yellow balls at you. And it's like, it's really confusing because it's one of the only times in the game where you can't parry, except the parry goes off. So you're like, okay, I did that correctly, ? And then he immediately slams you again while you're in animation lock.
Yeah.
Suggesting that it was wrong to parry that. But then I'm like, did you want me to get hit by the attack? And sometimes if you get hit by the attack, it triggers the necessary cutscene where you can finally kill him. But sometimes it doesn't, and you just get knocked back. And it's one of the most confusing boss fights in the game. I've fought him several times because I wanted to see the ending a few times. So I've done several runs of this fight, and I still don't entirely know what they want you to do against him.
So what I found worked is the things that shoot the lasers at you are the little turrets that he has around him. And what I found worked was you go in and kill at least one of the turrets, and then when you parry him, it'll shoot the laser balls. And then when you parry the laser balls, it destroys all the turrets, and then that opens up his defense so you can come in and beat the crap out of him.
Oh, I didn't know you could parry the laser balls. Okay.
You can parry, like, everything in these supersonic fights, right?
I don't know. I didn't think about it, but then again, I also didn't know you could silent most of these bosses either, so...
I didn't think that would actually work on some of the bosses.
Yeah, I saw Twip do it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about the supersonic bosses. They are all style and no substance. Like, I know a lot of people like them.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I've heard when I posted my thing, it's like, hey, it took me 27 hours to beat this game, get all the memory tokens, get all the optional cutscenes and all that stuff. And people are like, well, you have backup saves to go back and replay the bosses, huh? And I'm just like, but why would I do that? They're not very good. When you get past the hype factor of the fact that the main bosses in this game resemble the final bosses of other games, Supersonic as a playable character sucks in the main gameplay. It was designed to be an endgame reward for skilled players who want something extra out of the game. Like, by the time you unlock Supersonic in the classic games, like you can basically steamroll through the rest of it. And that's kind of the fun of it, is that I hate those fucking special stages in Sonic 2 so goddamn much, but once you have the Chaos Emeralds and can go Supersonic, you can completely break that game in half, and that's the fun of it. When you stick that into a boss encounter, then you have to build the boss around things that are annoyances. It's like Wario Land 2 and 3 design, where you can't get killed, so they have to keep finding ways to keep you from playing the game. Like, they have to keep all of the attacks have to batter you away so far that it's all about wasting the player's time so they run out the clock. And then it's like, if you don't have enough rings to fight these bosses correctly, then they become ungodly annoying because you have to parry everything perfectly, and you have to spam the combos, which sometimes just won't work for no discernible reason. Like, I'll mash Y a few times and press A, and the spin slash just won't work. I don't know why. And then the second boss fight is basically Egg, the Dark Mother Wisp from Colors DS again, where you're like flying, or the forward sections in the Time Eater. It's the same kind of thing where you gotta dodge a bunch of bullshit, and then when the game arbitrarily decides you can hit the boss, then you can hit the boss. You know, it's just...
But it's also like... Because like I don't necessarily mind style over substance if the style goes all in. And I think for at least two of these they do. You know, like it's the Wyvern fight is my favorite fight in the game because, like, you know, you're chasing this giant dragon around, and like below you see like this entire area that you've been running on, like on foot, and now you're just blazing past it even faster, like through the air, launching missiles at this guy, dodging bullets left and right. It's crazy, you know, and the music definitely helps too, you know? Like, I think, again, like with the first two, I think they're enjoyable, you know, and they're not really, you know what you're doing. I think the problem is more so with the last two because, like, they're not really intuitive. Like, again, like what y'all were saying is, like, with the last boss, you know, there's like that point where the health bar drops to a certain point, but then you can't really do anything. But then in the third boss, there's like this part that I struggled with, where, you know, you try to approach the knight, I think that's what he's called, and he just like moves super fast, like behind you, and he's throwing his shield, and it's like bouncing off the walls. I thought like you had to like trip him into like going into his own shield, but if you do that, it'll just clip right through him, you know? But what you have to do is that, like, you have to wait till he gets to a certain point in your, you know, in your line of sight, parry the shield, and then kind of like lead your shot. But it's not really ever explained that that's what you have to do, when I feel like as if the other boss fights kind of teach you how to fight without blatantly telling you what to do. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Well, I thought I picked up that you're supposed to get into the line of a reflecting shield when I was like, oh wait, I could just parry everything in this game, so I'll just parry this. And then I was like, okay,
yeah, well, that's like Pandora's box. When you figure out that you can just hold the parry and it's not timing based, it's like it basically ruined all of those fights, like any challenge they could have ever had.
Yeah,
because you can just sit there, hold the parry, immediately counter, take out a good chunk of their health, and then while they're stunned, spam a fuck ton of moves, and then just do it again, and then the fight's over.
Yeah. Here's the thing with that, Jeb. You know, you said that, like, oh, you know, I saw the red line. I saw the red line, and my 14 instincts kicked. So I'm like, oh, I should avoid that.
Yeah. Well, no, at first I avoided it, and I was like, okay, nothing's happening. Oh, I probably have to try to get hit by it. I'm supersonic. I'm invincible. Duh. Like, but then, so it's like, oh, okay, you aim it and shoot it at him. I'm like, all right. I got him in my sights. I shoot it, and he just keyframes away. I'm like, oh, okay, great. You have to like lead your shot. And
you have to lead your shot, and you can only move it a slight degree to the left and right. So you basically, it's based on what your camera position last was.
Yeah.
So you have to move your camera so that he's in view. Meanwhile, he's speeding around, like flying around in a circle, getting probably about to puke. He's gonna get a fucking headache doing that shit. But like,
and
he's doing it. He's dancing around, and you're like, okay, I have to time this so that it parries while my camera is on him. And he has to be on a certain side of your camera, because if he's if he's too far to one part or the other, you can't get the gear to reach him. Like if he's all the way on the left or all the way on the right, you're supposed to be leading this shot, because even if you get the target right on him, he will fly away from it.
Yeah, and he's like, when he's moving around this arena, this happens even when you're on the ground too, when you're regular Sonic. And it just, like, you can feel like there's like a point. There's like a point that his model circles around, and then it's like the model just rotates. It looks
bad.
So, yeah, and that's kind of a feeling I get with all these bosses, where these, in my opinion, I believe that these are the highlight of the game. And it's because I think the rest of the game also doesn't have substance. So if I'm not going to have substance, I may as well have fun, right? And I am when I'm fighting Giganto. And I'm, doing Super Saiyan shit. But then I also am not, because it feels and looks janky, and it just makes me think of actual dedicated action games that this is trying to invoke the feelings of. I'll fight Giganto, and I'll be doing a thing, and it just takes me out of the immersion to load a 30 FPS cutscene. They make the cutscenes, the cinematic thing.
We're back to pre-rendered stuff again.
Yay!
But it's not. But like, I would say that, but then it's not even pre-rendered, because it has to use the light, because it has a day and night cycle. So they literally just make it feels like I'm playing a PS1 game sometimes, because it'll just cut to this cinematic of a boss doing a thing after, fading to black and then doing it again and vice versa, So it's just like, I barely feel like I'm even necessarily doing the boss fight. I feel like I'm watching a thing happen, which I guess is, style over substance. But like, on top of the gameplay being jank as fuck, and on top of, once you figure out that you can just parry everything, they become...
Yeah, that's the the Wyvern fight, it's shooting missiles at you and you're supposed to dodge, right? You can just parry, sit there, hold the parry, the first missile hits you, the missile will fly towards his head, and it will skip that entire sequence, and you can just start wailing on him.
Oh my god.
I've thought to do that.
The parry breaks the game in, not even in half. It just, the game is, in pieces.
I was doing that boss fight, and I was avoiding the missiles for a bit, and I was flying over the landscape, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I feel like I'm doing Doomsday Zone, but but modern day. But then I was like, wait a minute. I probably could just deflect the missiles. I deflect the missiles, and then the boss just becomes this endless cycle of me wailing on him, basically. And it's cool when I see Supersonic lead the missiles and then stop and he just looks all cool.
Do the Mario 64 Bowser throw on him and throw him into a fucking mountain.
But then it's I think of how much nicer it could look. And and there's the part where he takes the missiles and does the Sonic movie shit, and he puts them together, and that's super cool. But then it just feels so disjointed, both from a gameplay.
What I like to compare it to, in what I did in my video, is that for me, in terms of style, I got a lot of vibes from Metal Gear Rising boss fights, in terms of incredibly hype music that makes your heart beat really fast, and you're flipping shit around and you're cutting shit in half with swords 20 times the size of your body. It has vibes similar to that. But over in Metal Gear Rising, and I'm not saying the game is like extremely difficult or anything, because that game has its own parrying issues. Not nearly as severe as Frontiers, but it's pretty fucking easy to counter in that game. But those bosses, especially if you crank up the difficulty, feel like actual bosses that can kick your shit in, even if you know how to abuse the parry. And it just makes them feel like they have style and substance.
Yes.
And with Frontiers, it's like cool to me that they have kick-ass style and the music's fucking incredible, but like when you can just sit there, hold your parry, and then it's over, or there's a bunch of weird jank shit at Night and Supreme, it's kind of like, well...
And like Supersonic snaps between his like idle animation and him getting hurt, and it just... I don't know. There's a line in the Wyvern music that's like, no more compromise. And I feel like the music certainly gets that energy down. But which of the music I've been listening to nonstop over the past week.
The first time I heard the Giganto theme, I was actually shocked. I was like, oh, shit. Like, whoa. Yeah. That was kind of...
I do want to mention that song.
Took me back.
At least, I think the first 3 Titan boss themes have a singer from a band called Sleeping with Sirens, which I bought their latest record and listened to it because I was curious. Because Danger Kids was good, Zebrahead is good, Julian K is one of my favorite bands. I have to shill them because it's like, it's my band that I like that nobody has heard of. It's my hipster band. For the love of God, go listen to California Noir. But anyways, I was shocked to learn that the singer on that song was not a woman. Turns out it's a man. His name is Kellen Quinn. And he has a very unique singing voice.
Cool.
So, yeah.
You know, sitting here and listening to you guys talk, I also kind of wonder if these supersonic fights are kind of an overcorrection. Because when was the last time, like the last time the Chaos Emeralds were ever important were in Sonic Generations. You know? And like that was something that a lot of people brought up in Sonic Forces, where it's like, you know, you have like this world-ending situation, and yet the Chaos Emeralds are nowhere to be found. So I'm also wondering if like they're like, oh, well, if they want the Chaos Emeralds back, we'll give it to them, and we'll make sure they know. And like that's like kind of the whole point of the game, is that you have to go explore the islands, get the Chaos Emeralds in each island, and you have to end each island with the giant supersonic boss fight, you know? And then also in regards to things that happen in the story as well, if we want to get to that point. But yeah, like it feels like in some ways they learned some things, but in some other ways they still kind of have that attitude that Sonic 4 had, where it's like, oh hey, remember how Sonic 4 Episode 1 had reused boss fights? We're going to tease you with this boss fight. Nope, it's a flower.
We're going to do the mirror thing. The Kingdom of Indecision.
Like, I get that kind of attitude a little bit with like listening to you guys talk about this, and like where we all kind of like stand in terms of like how the past 10 years of Sonic has been. I still like, there's still like a little bit of that meta era, quote unquote, like that stank, you know? It's still there, just in a much less form this time, but it's still noticeable, I think.
Another thing with these supersonic fights, which I think, you know, these are the fun parts of the game for me, even if I feel like they're compromised, but you know, I'm playing these and Supersonic is doing some of the wildest shit ever, and I'm like, it feels so weird. I mean, this isn't necessarily a problem, like, but it's kind of weird that Supersonic just now is suddenly able to do this wacky ass fucking shit, and is like the most powerful thing, and he's holding the sword, or I guess he's not holding the sword, he's clenching his fist, and the sword moves with his fist, but but you know, so that happens, and I'm just like, I'm looking at this, and not only does it feel like weird, like a real like not even subtle about it, but it's like, it feels like there's not even the same game being played here. I feel like I'm not playing Frontiers anymore. It's like this energy that is just not present throughout the rest of the game, which I guess is the point. You're going super, but you kind of just... It's weird in this like immersive game that suddenly like the hypest moment of the immersive game is actually has nothing to do with any of that class or subtlety. It's all about the fact that I'm fucking slicing a robot in two, you know. It's kind of, it feels like there's a lot of pieces here that aren't really. If I could get an entire game that had this action energy, that would be awesome. But
I think it earns it a little bit, because like with each of these fights, Supreme notwithstanding, there's always a moment where you encounter the Titan as regular Sonic, and you're usually like either running for your life or you're powerless, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then like when you're in that moment, suddenly like the music gets like really intense and really cinematic and bombastic and everything like that. So I think with Supersonic, it's supposed to be more like I guess like a power fantasy in some ways, where you go all out.
It's earned, like, you know, but it just, I don't know. It doesn't really make me feel very good about the product when I feel like this one tiny part that happens 4 times is clearly, you know, going for something different that I enjoy more, or maybe it would be the other way around if I felt the other way around, and it's, I don't know.
No, I see that.
I'm going to disagree somewhat. Like I hear you when you say that the Supersonic bosses have a different tone or feel to them than the core open zone gameplay does, because like Ryan said, it's a power trip. But it still does use the same combat mechanics as the core gameplay, and you still
which I would
around.
give it credit for. I think that's actually a cool thing. A lot of Supersonic things just change your entire everything, and I think it's actually kind of cool if they retain your same mechanics for these fights. Yes.